As soon as the thing actually starts doing the stuff, I guess I'll hand it over to D. Go for it, D.
What's going on, everybody? Brains. Hope everyone's having a great day. This show is for educational and entertainment purposes only. You have to be 21 and over to be here. That's 21 in French. If not, you have to leave. Back to you, Freemy.
That's it. Am I unmuted? I am. Ladies and gerbils, the show is, of course, for adults only. We don't need or want to hear any. We're getting some feedback here. Is that me or somebody else? Okay, that might be me. Ladies and gentlemen, no children allowed, honestly, because we talk about sort of adult subjects basically. So just go do something else. Honestly, if you're a kid, go find something else. We don't have to be mean about it, but seriously, go find something else to do. That should be clear enough to folks that this is not a show for kids. Christophe is first in the chat. Bonjour, Christophe. Always a pleasure to see our friend from France over there, or La Belle France, or whatever, right? But anyway, bonjour, Christophe. Pretty good grower over there in the old country, so to speak. He's grown a bunch of different strains that he's shown us over the years. He's crossed a bunch of my stuff to his own stuff. He's crossed my stuff to other stuff of mine. He's done Morgana Lime River Rose crosses. He's done Lime River Rose to Skunk. He's done goodness gracious, what else did he do? He did he did a couple of different crosses with like because he gets a lot of Dutch seeds obviously because he's in Europe. So what was it like the white not the white, it was oh shit, he sent me one. It was great. Anyway, Christoph is having lots of fun over there in the old world. It's nice to see that kind of stuff. You don't see a lot of that kind of fun, freewheeling spirit, honestly. I feel like in the American scene, it's basically a gold rush, and so it's essentially filled with a lot of the worst possible people you could find. People that don't give a shit about weed at all. It's really just money for them. So it's nice to see someone like Christoph who's all about the weed. Honestly, that's been clear since day one. Good to see Christoph. If you folks are up for it, you're welcome to join us. I mean, shit, you could talk to North Star here. Where else do you get a chance to talk to North Star? Hop on the show if you're welcome, or if you're willing. Again, don't be a dick. Don't show your dick. Don't be a lunatic. Pretty straightforward rules, but you'd be surprised how many people can't even follow those rules. So seriously, if you can't keep snot from coming out of your nose without blowing it first,
No,
perhaps this
no,
is
no,
not the
no,
show for
no,
you or
no.
something. So what's that, D?
No, 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 no.
That's it. But long story short, it doesn't take much to come on the show. Ask nicely. That's it. And we'd be happy to provide you a link in the chat. You don't have to guess the link. You just honestly have to ask for it. And we'd be happy to give it to you. Cheers, Couch Flyer. Good to see you as well in the chat there. And of course, our illustrious head moderator, D, is in the chat. Speaking of D, welcome, my friend. What's going on?
What's going on, everybody? What's going on, panel? Chat? Hope everyone's having a great day. I'm smoking on my same old different varieties. Um, what else? Nothing else, I guess, is going on. Cheers. Don't forget this Saturday there will be a takeover meeting, takeover safety meeting, takeover show on the Primavera channel. And don't forget Top Chat, Live Chat for your better chatting experience. Cheers.
That's very good to see you, D. Welcome, North Star. What's going on?
Yeah, it's middle of the week here, kicking it off, and two greenhouses are just about fully done being harvested. I got another one getting ready to come next week.
Nice.
Smoking on a little Santa Marta Sling here. This is Darkwood crossed with Colombian, so that's Blood Wreck times Deadhead OG times UK Cheese times Santa Marta Colombian Gold.
That's a mouthful.
Blood Wreck.
Yeah, it I'd say retaining maybe about 20-25% of the Blood Wreck turf. Got a light slime, earthy background to it, and it's got this like herbal, grainy, earthy, musky kind of funk mixed together. Pretty unique. Pretty uplifting and energetic. I find if I just smoke a bowl or two, I'm pretty good to go. I can focus and move along. If I smoke too much, I do get a little bit of antsy. I get a little bit of confusion kind of thing, and I'll end up, walking around the house, figuring out what the hell I'm trying to do myself. So it's kind of got to moderate it a little bit. It's a little strong in the back end there if you have a little too much of it.
That's it.
But yeah. Freaking fall's here. It's full on harvest season, so I got my outdoor plant done last week. Volunteer that came down, looked really good. This is a great time of year. Loving it.
Sweet. Yeah, basically everything that I had outside is drying up. I'm just thinking about in the next few days maybe launching a flower here in the indoor environment. But Yeah, pretty decent year, all things considered. Honestly, I was expecting a lot worse. I got stuck in California for like 6 weeks, basically, for just some absolute fucking goddamn horseshit, honestly, which is a shame because California is so nice. But basically, in the time that I was down there, we started flower. We went through the first, I don't know, 5, 6 weeks of flower, honestly. So by the time I got back, like shit, stuff was not everything was probably halfway through flower, but a good amount of it was, honestly. And thank fuck we survived, honestly. So like the my caretaker that knew how to water and take care of plants and everything had foot surgery. It was perfect shitty timing, honestly. And I was expecting a repeat of last year where everything went to shit. So her brother ended up taking care of the plants and he did his best, but I mean shit, he's not a super gardener and everything else, right? So when I came back, there was a lot of issues, honestly, on the outdoor plants. My banana cream cake jealousy, I thought was not going to finish. I thought it was going to die. I thought it was just honestly going to die when I came back. My sour Morgana daughter was not really that great. I was expecting it to be 7 feet tall when it finished, but that was one that he just, I guess, forgot to water. What my Miss Goji was the one that probably got fucked this year because her sour, what do I call her? I call her Miss Goji kind of colloquially, but that's the goji pie that I have. Anyway, that one kind of got fucked. I didn't get that much off that one. But what else? Yeah, even the I had two lemon trees, and one of the lemon trees was not doing very well. Anyway, when I got back, I was like, fuck, what am I gonna do? And I thought about it, thought about it, thought about it. I was like, all right, I don't have time because we're in many cases we're already halfway through flower. Some things were kind of in the early second, third week of flower, something like that. Like the white runts that I had, I am not going to keep that cut because that thing probably still needed a couple of weeks. I harvested it and I probably will get decent flower, but it definitely needed a lot more. So that was one of the plants that was way behind. And that was also one of the plants that had all kinds of weird growth and stuff because it hadn't gotten watered properly. Anyway, kelp's not going to work. I thought, what else? But I don't know, all kinds of different extract teas or something that I've used in the past. Those are not going to work. Worm compost. Worm compost definitely would help. So I definitely put good compost and In fact, that actually was one of the things that did help, I think. But it's not going to change the entire name of the ball game. But one thing I thought would help is aloe, because aloe has a shit ton of not only salicylic acid and gibberellins and all this different stuff, but every possible thing that a plant needs to grow. Basically, it's essentially kind of like coconut water, basically in an aloe husk. So I basically thought, fuck it, I'm just going to go get a bunch of aloe at the Asian stores. I went and got $1 an arm. I think I can even show you that. Well, I can show you in a second because they're pretty substantial.
That's what she said.
Easiest and best is to grow it yourself, but because of all the weird shit in my life, I don't have a bunch of big aloe plants anymore. So for $1 per arm, I went to the Vietnamese grocery store up in Portland, Hung Fat, basically. I'm sure every town has a different Asian grocery store that you can find these at. Some Mexican stores have them. Although a couple of Mexican places that I went to when Hung Fat was out of stock, or Hung Fat has 5 stores now. They used to start with one store on 82nd. They've apparently become a freaking entire empire now, but they were out of stock at like almost all their stores. So I checked a couple Mexican places, and the Mexican places only had these little baby aloes for like $2 or $3, whatever. But all I had to do was grind up the aloe. So I got a Vitamix, basically. I have a Vitamix, and I just ground up the aloe. And usually, what I do is more aloe than water, candidly. Well, that's actually not true. It was probably about half and half water to aloe. And I literally just poured that into the plants. And so I poured in at least one, if not even like an arm and a half per plant. Uh, Basically almost every watering for like 2 weeks, essentially. I just kept going by aloe arms. I wonder what the Vietnamese people think I'm doing with them. Because,
Like a motherfucker.
seriously, like what I wonder if they think I'm eating them or what. But that fucking changed the game. It absolutely fixed the plants.
Huh.
Banana cream cake jealousy did not finish as like a 5 pound plant that it probably could have, because it was a big plant when I put it out, and it was a big plant when I came back. But how do I put it? The bigger the roots, the bigger the fruits. Well, when you don't water properly, the roots don't develop. Basically, that's the issue. And so, anytime you have drought stress, heat stress, water stress, anything else, if you have those fucked up roots, the plant is going to suffer, and it has to focus all that energy on that instead of the secondary sex characteristics like creating big, luscious, amazing fruit. But I got a good amount of it. I think I got Well, I guess I don't like to say how much just in case anyone's paying attention, but I think I got a good amount off that banana cream cake jealousy, and it was super, super flavorful. I got a spectacular amount, I think, for the situation from lemon
Nice.
tree, even the one lemon tree that was kind of messed up, although that one was a little bit less, obviously, but super frosty on that goddamn lemon tree. I have now the problem that I have like too much lemon tree, honestly, but it is what it is. It's a good problem to have. What else? Yeah, honestly, that was the solution. So it probably doesn't help people for this season, although I don't know, maybe some people are still in early
Oh,
enough.
you are.
Probably not, honestly, in the Northern Hemisphere, but you never know. Maybe somebody's in some kind of a light depth situation or something. If you've got a massive problem with your plants, I mean, it's going to be a different problem than I had probably, but it's worth a shot. Grind up some aloe. Here, I'll go get one of those aloes so you can see what I'm talking about.
So where I am right now, our grocery stores actually have an international section, food section at our grocery store. So we have like a lot of Indian stuff. So we have a lot of not Native American Indians, Indians from India, Pakistan, Pakistanis and stuff like that. So well, yeah, what Fiona was about to show you probably was what we get at. Yeah, we get big, huge ones like that at our grocery
Oh,
store.
I think these come from Texas, maybe.
Eat,
No, Mexico.
what do you call them? A palm? What do you call them each?
Frond, maybe. I guess this would be a frond of
Palm?
aloe. I guess I don't know, to be perfectly honest with you. But I would rather grow them myself because I assume this is not organic and everything else, right?
Hmm.
But shit, better than nothing, honestly. And especially if you're watering into the soil. I don't think there's too much of a risk of pesticides on something like this. Suppose that's up for debate, I guess. If anyone in the chat knows, I've always kind of washed them off before I put the thing in, just like you wash food. So I figure if you can eat a lot of different things, you can probably wash it off too, and it's probably reasonably okay. And I just literally grind the whole fucking thing up. I mean, I don't put it in like that, like a wood chipper. I like from Fargo.
Wow.
Right. Everyone, the best part about that scene is that everyone remembers that scene is super brutal, but you never actually see the guy. I think you might see one of the feet like with a shoe, but you never see like a leg or whatever going to the wood chipper, but everyone remembers like, oh my God, they were totally putting a person to the wood chipper if you ask them. Anyway, but I just cut it up basically into a few pieces, throw it in the Vitamix, and then I put just to help it grind up, I put in like, I don't know, halfway water, and then I just fill it up basically once it's kind of ground up a little bit, and then I grind it essentially to a soup, basically. It only takes maybe a minute, 2 minutes, something like that on a high setting. And you definitely don't want to like cook the aloe because if you use a Vitamix, like you can actually cook soup and stuff if you leave it on for too long. Or rather, how do I put this? If you want to cook soup, you can actually cook it with the motor. Basically, like the motor gets hot enough that it'll actually cook the liquid. So you have to remember, you don't actually want to heat up this liquid because you like denature the proteins and stuff probably. But anyway, it worked great, honestly. So that was I've done kind of aloe saves in the past for minor things, but man, this was an extreme case. Like I literally did not think the banana cream cake jealousy was going to finish. I
That's
thought
awesome.
the leaf and well basically the entire plant had discolored leaves like during when did I come back? I guess I came back in early mid-September, something like that, about a month ago. Basically I came back about a month ago, and it was still, I would say, the banana cream cake jealousy was behind everything, and I would say that thing was probably like week 3 or something. So in week 3 you should have beautiful green vegetation, white pistils. Thankfully all the pistils were white because I didn't get any pollination or anything, but you should have green vibrant leaves. You should still, it's the middle of stretch, right? So you should have a vibrant tall shoots with the asymmetrical growth and everything. And this plant was sagging, the leaves were sagging, basically, except for at the very tippy top. The meristematic growth had a little bit of green shoots on it, but all of the stalks were purple. The entire plant was drooping, like it was fucked. Honestly, that was in bad shape. And little by little by little, wouldn't you know it, I got the plant to actually start praying. The leaf, I had to take off a lot of discolored leaves, but thankfully the plant actually, because I guess it was still in stretch, grew back a bunch of its leaves, grew a bunch of new shoots and leaves, uh, replaced a bunch of fan leaves, not all of them, unfortunately, but replaced a bunch of fan leaves. Like it really, it really saved itself. It was something else. And I was able to actually get a real crop out of it, like a real stinky, nice crop. So it's a good breeding, of course. Always that goddamn seed junkie has good shit, but really compelling flower. I was smoking that indoor harvest of mine of that banana cream cake jealousy down in California, and this guy I know walked by. He doesn't know that I don't think he knows that I'm a grower or anything, but he's like, "Fuck, that smells great." And I was like, "Well, I wish I could have. I wish I could take credit for growing it, but at least I bred it. It did smell great though." But yeah, I'm pretty happy about it with the aloe. It really saved the because I mean
I
shit
want to
like
give the aloe a try. I've never used aloe before. I want to give that a try. Sounds good.
oh, it worked great. And a lot
I
of times people strip out the insides and stuff, which there's nothing wrong with. I mean, obviously, but I think I don't have scientific proof to this, so I would love to know more. I have never found a fruit that didn't have more nutrition in the peel than in the actual fruit. Like they say, for example, a lot of monkeys and stuff just eat the whole banana because the fruit or the fruit itself has something like 10% of the vitamins as the peel does. So anyway, same thing with watermelons, oranges, you name it. The peels always have a ton. So my assumption is I'm not eating the thing, so I don't really give a shit. As long as it's blended up and just kind of composts in the soil, it'll be fine. So I guess my concern with any of the like green husk on the soil is if there's too much of it, then it might start rotting. But I didn't put that much that it starts like rotting, like I put maybe
Yeah.
what, 3 fronds total, or maybe because what I got there a month ago, and I think, like I said, like every watering, and I was watering them every couple days for I don't know, 10 days or something. So maybe I put 3, 4 fronds on each aloe or on each plant, and I'm talking about 30-gallon pots, like that was not a big deal. So if you were to put, I don't know, a frond every single week, maybe that would end up being a problem, but it definitely wasn't a problem for me. But anyway,
got a fun question, aloe question.
go for it.
What's the easiest way to start an aloe plant? Could you just
Oh
go to the
shit, go
store
buy
and
one.
grab one of those?
They grow really fast, honestly. I have 3 or 4 of them outside. I just have to replant and stuff. I don't have the space. Basically, I don't have my own house right now, so I don't have the space to grow all my aloe plants. But they grow really fast.
But
All of my aloe plants basically came from 2 little aloe plants that I got. They were literally this tall. I guess I can't see my screen. They were this tall from not kind of the pot. The pot was like that big. It was one of those tiny little things, and then the plants were 2 arms each from Home Depot, and I think I got them when they used to be $2. They've raised the price to maybe $3 now, and that was a few years ago. And then ever since then, I've given because they pup off new shoots. Basically, I've given pups to basically everybody I know. I've grown tons of plants myself. I've ground up tons of arms myself, like all from those 2 little plants, and they grow really well in a cannabis garden. They grow really well, like in a veg grow room, for example. That's where I had mine for years. I had this one big fucking plant, honestly, in a 30-gallon. Unfortunately, she broke and stuff. So I had to replant her when I moved. But it was this beautiful plant in like I guess it wasn't a 30, it was like a 25-gallon pot off to the side of the grow room, not under the light or anything, just basically obliquely close to the garden, basically. And it grew great for years. I just water them every time I'd water the cannabis plants. Aloes surprisingly people think they're desert plants. They're not actually desert plants. They need basically the same soil as cannabis, essentially, like moderately moist without being sopping wet, something like that.
moist.
Yeah, they grow super well. An interesting thing that we haven't seen him for a while, St. Bernard's observation booth, and I know Northstar might know him, but he used to be a regular. He said years ago, and he had sources for this that I looked up, and I don't remember the sources now. We could look this up somehow, I'm sure. But he said that juvenile aloe plants do not have the same amount of I don't remember which specific hormone, if it was the salicylic acid or something else. But anyway, they don't have the same amount of hormones as mature plants, which is logical, honestly. And so he said, if possible, try to get older plants that are older than 1, 2 years old. So, for example, that aloe frond is probably a good example. But if you were to get a couple of aloe plants, just don't harvest them for a couple of years, and just let them grow. And then after a couple of years, fuck, you're going to have so many aloe plants, so many aloe fronds and everything, especially like outdoors. Holy shit, in California, Northstar would have an army of aloes before long.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that.
Yeah, they're super useful. Apparently, this is something Coot said when he used to come on my show. Apparently, aloes were the first domesticated plant. Like 20, 30,000 years ago, because people started using them for they understood they could see fairly quickly that they were useful for medicinal reasons and a few I guess basically mostly medicinal reasons, and so people started to cultivate them literally like 20, 30,000 years ago. Here, let me look that up, how long ago that was.
Hmm.
Folks, hop on. We've already been here for 20 minutes. We can certainly do a shorter show here, for example, but take advantage, hop on, talk about aloe, talk about ways that you saved your plants in the past, or perhaps you have a disaster story. Those are fun
I want to
sometimes.
start.
Let me see. What was I going to say?
No, I've just been dealing with I've been dealing with leaf septoria most of the season here. It's just in my yard, and like my last greenhouse here, I'm coming down. I don't even have the front of it's just screen, so I had no kind of prevention to guard them from any of the spores getting in there.
Hmm.
So it's just a matter of dealing with the one thing that's
Wow.
interesting. This greenhouse here is pretty much a test run. It's got a bunch of sugar jacks in it, a couple things that I haven't run in the greenhouse at all yet. So it's a big variety, so I get to see how everything performs. Very interesting is one of my death row OGs in there. Everything's all yellow, and the one plant by itself is like leaf septoria. Fuck you, don't bother me. Like just
Yeah.
not a spot anywhere. Like, it's just totally just rolling with the punches. I'm like, all right, you're a special one.
Yeah, it's now that you mention it, or as you've been talking about, because you've been bringing up the leaf septoria a couple times. We had a guy that used to be on the show. It's not worth bringing up his whole story, but he had this. He had like an axe to grind about leaf septoria, and I'm just kind of trying to. I'm not necessarily trying to bring that guy up specifically. I've had all experiences with people over the years where they try to tell you that this particular new disease is the most important, most significant cannabis disease that you've ever heard of. Leaf septoria, fusarium a few years ago, a bunch of other ones. It's like not any one of these things is that serious. Like septoria, it could fuck you up, sure. But like you just explained, like you've had septoria the whole year and it's not destroying your crop, it's not
Oh
destroying your
no.
life, you're not pulling your hair out from stress. Like I don't know.
Basically, I'm doing some preventative stuff before I get in the flower. After about 2 weeks in the flower, it just goes. I don't fuck with my stuff anymore. So yeah, there's still spores in there. It gets in the leaves. I have a bunch of early yellowing on stuff. I'm sure it's affecting my yield some, but other than being a little more of a pain in the ass to trim some of the plants to get a little, that suffer a little bit more with it than other ones, it's not that big a deal. Everything looks the same, and I'm done. I mean, I'm obviously not leaving all the yellow leaves on the plant. So once I trim it all away, it looks as good as anything else. The buds themselves, all the sugar leaves, they're all just green. Just the fan leaves are all getting all yellow early on me and spotted and all that kind of shit. So it's really a pain in the ass because like you said, usually 4 or 5 weeks in, you expect all your family to still like some green, everything's soaking up. No, I'm in there pulling them off as they're dropping off, dying and turning yellow everywhere. It's a pain in the butt crawling everywhere because if you start leaving all the leaves laying in there, then you're inviting more molds and shit to come in if you're leaving a bunch of dead leaf material. So it basically causes a bunch more work for a little bit less yield, which is why it sucks. I mean, I don't want to deal with it every year, obviously. So next year, I'm putting the filters back on my greenhouse. Since I wasn't doing any seed production outside this year, I didn't bother putting filters on. And yeah, apparently they help quite a bit.
Nice.
It's the first time I've ever had to deal with it in my greenhouses before. I mean, I had some outdoor last year. A couple plants had gotten it, but it's never that big a deal. You just gotta deal with it. I'd much rather have this deal with than have spider mites or something infest in my grow 4 weeks in or something. They're way fucking worse.
For real, yeah. Well, they can destroy your shit for real. What are they? I'm just kind of trying to Google again where and how it comes from, because thankfully I've never had to deal with it. Where we at here? Share this page.
Well, I have it on multiple trees here. A willow tree gets it quite a bit on my property. Basically, when you have moisture and you're like in the 60-degree range or so, you're gonna, if it's in the area, the spores will travel. I think it's about 2 to 3 weeks for it to metastasize on the plant, so it shows itself. But once you see it on your lower leaves, you pretty much bet all the older leaves that are above it in the next couple of weeks are going to start showing signs of it. The best way is just preventative maintenance. When you have your young stuff cut, you have you spray your rooms down and shit, like keep everything clean. Once you go outside, though, I mean, there's only so much you can do outside. I mean, it's unless you've got some kind of crazy system where you're going to spray your whole yard down and try to keep it out of your yard. That's going to be kind of hard to deal with. So I've even gone as far as to call local radio shows asking the pros what they do in the area for
Mm.
Septoria. And basically, they just you treat the plants that you're trying to take care of, and obviously with like a vegetable garden, you can treat further on as plants are going to use rinse off your tomatoes. No big deal if you have a little bit of sulfur in your garden or something like that. But it's different with a cannabis garden. So
They say basically it is a fungal spore, and I get okay. This is just Royal Queen seeds, so we don't have to take their word for everything until the end of time. But they basically mention a bunch of different compost tea, jadam, stuff like that. Essentially, microbial inoculants, lactic acid bacteria. I was talking about using milk for powdery mildew. So I think in many cases you would approach it a little bit like you would approach. Again, this is me somewhat hypothesizing because thankfully I haven't had to deal with Septoria. You'd approach it like you're trying to approach avoiding powdery mildew, right? They're saying that it thrives in moist, wet conditions. You mentioned it says remove infected foliage. I guess I could show that while I'm talking about it.
yeah, it overwinters with dead foliage in the ground. So you got to make sure you clean up any like under my fruit trees that have some. I make sure I get those leaves out of there because those are going to basically give off spores that are going to infect those trees, and it's going to make its way to my garden again. So
Which is logical, we don't
yeah,
talk about kind of spore count and stuff enough, right? Everybody sort of got familiar with what viral load and whatever, thanks to the pandemic. Well, spore count and so on is essentially a little bit similar in the sense that fungal spores are somewhat ubiquitous, right? So, for example, bud rot. Bud rot is everywhere. It's literally just the botrytis fungus, and it infects basically everything. And it affects wine. So, for example, here in the Willamette Valley or down where you are, if you have grapes anywhere near you, you absolutely certainly have botrytis. It infects apples, fruit. I mean, anywhere you have fruit orchards,
and it rots pretty
growing
much.
fruit of any kind, 100%. If you're growing food, basically, you're going to have botrytis.
Yeah.
So then you essentially have to realize, all right, I have botrytis in the environment. Now I have to keep a healthy plant and try to give my plant the mechanisms to deal with that. That's kind of the exception to this, where powdery mildew, leaf septoria, I guess Fusarium is also kind of on that side, but there's a few of these other kind of spore-based conditions that we have that if you minimize the spores in your environment and then also clean up your environment, you're going to minimize the chances of having that problem. PM is a good example of that. And I guess where I was going to with that is that a lot of organic growers love to chop and drop, which is just, I used to do it too. It's terrible gardening practice, right? Like you really don't want to take off the waste leaves from your plant and leave them on the soil. It's a logical and reasonable thing to want to do because you think, oh, you want the leaves to break down and come back to the soil, right? It's almost a biblical thing, right? Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, right? People are very familiar with that in the sort of the Western world. But the problem is you essentially end up compounding the spore count. Essentially, you add to the spores. The all the spores, for example, the leaf septoria or the powdery mildew or anything else that were in the leaf canopy now are going to have a chance to come back in the right conditions or every different spore is different, right? So some of them would actually start growing in the ground, but anyway, they would have a chance to come back up onto the leaves in the next harvest season, or if there's a bug, a fungus gnat or whatever that's walking on the ground and picks up one of those spores and then jumps up on the leaf, you have a nice little vector right there. So you really don't want to compound. First of all, also you don't want to invite pests and pathogens to a composting leaf mulch on your plants because you're trying to grow cannabis. So long story short, you should take those leaves and compost them somewhere else. And if you compost them in a hot compost, you can actually remove leaf septoria, fusarium, all these different problems that you would end up compounding by chopping and dropping right on your soil. If you take it somewhere else and compost it somewhere else, A, you're getting rid of the problem, and B, if you do it right, you can always take that stuff and bring it back next year. Here's me just fucking pontificating. What's going on, Jeff?
Hey,
Hey,
Jeff.
how you doing? What's up, everyone? Joel, you guys doing? Yeah, everything's good here.
Just having a puff.
Nice weather. Yeah, me too.
Too.
It was a good show last night. Yeah, I don't know if you heard it. I bought a humidor. I was talking about it.
Say again, Jeff.
I bought a humidor.
Oh, right on for cigars.
You know,
Weed.
well, that's what it's made for, but yeah, and it's one that controls humidity also.
Hmm.
And it'll cool and heat, so it keeps temperature just right, and supposed to control the humidity. Looks like a takeoff maybe on the Canatrol, like maybe That guy has a patent, but they just probably just copied it more or less. I mean, that's not they're not working with dew point, which was his thing. Yeah, I was talking about that too last night. How no one talks about vapor pressure deficit with drying, but really that's what controls yeah, basically how fast it's going to dry out. And the Cantrell looks at that. So he talks about dew point. And, yeah, we were talking about it last night. It was that was good discussion.
I guess it's an interesting, as you, my
Yeah,
first
points are correct.
reaction was different than as I'm thinking about it now. I was like, oh, that's right. Jeff's in Colorado. It's super dry up in the mountains. So when every time that I've heard somebody talk about harvesting in Colorado, they do everything they can to slow down the drying process because the plants dry out in literally 2 days, 1 day, 2 days, and it tastes like I guess it tastes like, well, does it taste like hay? I can't remember what happens. Yeah, because if you
Well, it just gets really dry. It may be 4 days, I guess. I don't put any fan on it either. Just hanging and basically still room.
And that, a lot of cannabis people would basically acknowledge that 2 weeks is kind of, for whatever reason, that's sort of the acknowledged time that it takes cannabis to dry. In a laboratory environment, it might be a different amount, of course, but just kind of hanging, it seems like the best cannabis if it sort of slowly dries, but not too slowly, not over a month, not over 6 months or something, but like a couple of weeks maybe. Same thing basically with like a rose or any other kind of flower, like somewhat slowly drying. That seems to be the key. Difficult to achieve if you're in a super dry ass place, Southern California, where Flora is, for example. Like, holy shit, plants. First of all, you have to keep it cool because it's 100 degrees, even indoors sometimes. So you have to keep it cool. Then you also have to keep it dry enough that it's actually able to dry out. It's interesting that you brought it up.
Yeah.
Kind of thinking all about it. My first reaction was that I think growers should talk about VPD less. And I don't mean, let's say, commercial growers, because of course they have the ability to actually manage VPD properly. But I think basically even advanced, like small time growers, I guess even a professional small time grower, honestly, I'm thinking about, for example, Bud Kilowatt and so on. I feel like a lot of people, well, Bud could do it. He knows what he's doing. I think he wouldn't have any of those problems. I guess I'll get to the point. I think a lot of people misunderstand VPD and sort of chase this line for a couple different reasons. I guess one that I can think of is when new growers start, this is I think where I really started to think the VPD is a waste of time for a lot of growers because I heard it so many times with new growers. They would look at the humidity sensor on their wall and they would look at the temperature and say, shit, yeah, I'm in VPD. But in the meantime, they didn't have a dehumidifier. They didn't have fans in their environment. They didn't have air coming in or going out. They weren't really conditioning their air in any meaningful way. They just were looking at a current snapshot of their environment and saying, "Oh shit, it's in VPD," and it was technically basically the air humidity and temperature did correspond to a VPD chart, right? But their plants were not. You could see it from their plants. I guess in these examples that I'm thinking of, you could see it from their plants that they were not thriving and like growing at their max capacity, right? They were basically just barely getting by because the plants essentially couldn't really evaporate anything into an already fairly moist environment. I guess I don't have to get into my philosophical
Look,
reasons for fucking VPD, but the point is that I think that honestly, it's a lot more useful to chase having how do I put this even in words that are simple? Because I guess it's I should explain my complaint simply. Um, you need to have a constant interchange of air. That's something I think most experienced growers would agree to. And your plants will constantly evaporate the moisture or transpire the moisture that you feed them. And you have to have some mechanism for basically realizing that this is not a closed system. You have to basically open this system. I'm not explaining this simply enough. I really am not explaining this simply enough. Long story short, I think that a lot of especially new growers chase VPD and it becomes almost an idiot psychosis where instead of solving the problems in their garden, like getting a dehumidifier and conditioning the air and passing it through their garden, they just basically chase numbers on a chart. So every time that I hear people talk about VPD, that's kind of my first reaction. I'm like, oh shit, fucking new growers are gonna fuck up their garden. I don't know. That
so
maybe doesn't make any sense, but
is
go
it
ahead.
supposed to be just when the lights are on? That for if you're
Uh,
monitoring it for growing?
You
No, it
know,
has
I don't
effect
remember
on
the
like the
answer to
nutrient
that. I think I
uptake.
used to know the answer to that, and I don't remember anymore. Do you actually follow the VPD chart at dark? I think it's when the lights are on, but I won't swear to that right now.
Because if the water, if the moisture's got to flow through because it's evaporating, well, then it's also uptaking more nutrients.
I
And
mean,
that's
that's
one
the
of the problems
idea.
if it's
When you
not
basically are in
evaporating.
that green zone, the plant is at its optimal capacity. You're like a peak athlete, basically. For, Michael Phelps was eating 12,000 calories a day, but he was just fucking using them. And the plant is able to transpire as much water as it can. It can suck up as much water from the roots as it can. So, in an organic situation, you're basically just feeding a plant really happily. In a synthetic situation, it's sucking up all those nutrients. So that's why a commercial setup tries to chase VPD, because the plant, you'll probably get a 20-30% bump, basically, especially from veg growth, when the plant is in that happy zone. In flower, maybe a little bit less so, but in veg for sure.
But do they try to keep it constant? Like when
Yeah,
the
I
lights
would
go
say
off and
so.
temperature,
Yeah.
because when the temperature's dropping so much, well, you try to keep the temperature constant too. In a good, some grows anyway. But yeah, if it's dropping 10 degrees though, you have to lower the humidity then too, and to
Mhm.
keep the pressure the same, vapor pressure
I keep my rooms
deficit.
the same 24/7. I don't change the temperatures, humidity. Um, Basically, my bedroom never even goes dark. I have multiple banks of lights on different timers,
Hmm.
and different lights go off at different times for 3 or 4 hours at a time to cool off. Is basically all. So there's always full light in the room. To depend whether it's fully over the plants or it's the plants next to them getting all the light. But so it's
Yeah,
that
that helps
kind of
keep the temperature.
just keeps it. I keep right around 80 degrees most of the time. 80
Hmm.
degrees and about 50% humidity running. Everything just seems to go just fine now. And then the next room over is basically just a couple tents for a small little flowering section that grows in the same temperatures too.
Yeah.
Have air circulating through the whole building. And both rooms are climatized with air conditioners, dehumidifiers, but all the rooms is all sharing the same air going around.
Yeah, and then when you're drying, I mean, you probably want to start off with a higher
Now, when I'm drying,
deficit.
I have a different building for drying. I have a room that I trim in, and I also dry in that room. That room has a drying chamber, which has little exhaust fans on it, and it pulls air in through a house filter over through these drying racks, and my two little exhaust fans I have hooked to a timer, so I can have one fan going, two fans going, or just one fan on the timer where it turns on for a half an hour, off for a half an hour, back and forth. It all depends on the temperatures outside and everything else is what I adjust it to. How many plants are even in the drying chamber itself? If I've got 10 racks full, it's going to need more airflow than it does if I only have 2 racks full in there.
Yeah.
Just constantly adjusting stuff to try to dial everything all the time.
This is an interesting, simple explanation of what it actually is from Climate Signals. What's the website here? Because I can't see it. Climatesignals.org. So they basically question what is vapor pressure deficit, and this is not specific to growing. This is just what it is. The amount of water in the air can be measured in terms of pressure. The more water there is in the air, the greater the pressure it exerts at the surface, because basically fucking weighs more, right? We forget that air actually weighs something. Vapor pressure deficit, VPD, measures how much water is in the air versus the maximum amount of water vapor that can exist in the air, what's known as the saturation vapor pressure, SVP. As air warms, its capacity to hold water increases, thus its SVP increases as well. The greater the difference between the air's actual water vapor pressure and its saturation vapor pressure, the more potential it will have to suck moisture from the ground. VPD is used to measure dryness or aridity near the Earth's surface. It is directly related to the rate at which water is transferred from the land surface to the atmosphere. For example, as VPD increases, which means the air is less saturated with water, plants need to draw more water from their roots, which can cause the plants to dry out and die. They're not talking about gardening, right? But in this case, it causes them to draw more water from the presumably well-watered medium, which means they're sucking up, again, in synthetic, they're sucking up nutrients, or even with organics, they're sucking up, good
Yes, like, I look at it as it's the pressure. Sorry, yeah, the pressure that the leaf feels, the actual pressure, and it's the difference between like how much yeah, the air can hold and how much is in there. So if the air can start holding more, well, then yeah, that difference becomes greater. The leaf's going to feel, less pressure on it basically, and more is going to come out. But so when you're drying, like I think I don't know if it like the Canatrol. I don't know if it keeps it constant. Probably doesn't. Like I would say when you first put something in there, it probably starts wants a higher deficit, and then to help get more out. But then I would think like it at least wants to keep it a continuous, um, from point to point. There's a continuity. So yeah, like if you would plot on a curve, it would be a continuous curve. And yeah, so not something, which basically means yeah, the derivative you can find the first derivative, and so a nice smooth curve, and I think that's what it tries to do, and it probably tries to shoot like if you say, oh, I want a 4-day cure or 10 4-day dry or 10-day dry, it probably says okay 4 days I want to hit 60-60, and but I'm going to start at like a little like maybe 65-67 or like actually I thought I asked ChatGPT to come up with the different temperatures and humidity. Like if I started, and I said like 70 degrees and go down to 60 degrees, but I want to keep a constant pressure deficit. Um, give me the humidities for like at 1 degree temperature drops. And so like it starts out like at 70 degrees, you need it's more than 70. Like at 60, you need 60% humidity, but at 70 degrees, you need something like 70. I could look it up. I could even put it up. But it probably I think that's what the control tries to do. And and then I was also talking about how because I thought about this, how basically terpenes, they can't they're non-polar, they don't dissolve in uh water and basically hydrophobic. And same thing in the gas phase. So more moisture in the air tends to you can like repel basically, or but it tries to like I look at it as like on the surface of the leaf, the terpenes are basically going to be pushed back a little bit. This is a different effect than vapor pressure deficit where it's evaporating, and uh, I think that's why, like, so if you have, I think it's desirable to keep a more humid environment when you're drying, just to help keep the terps in. Just from that aspect of having this room filled with water, and terps try to repel from water, so they'll try to stay in the bud more. And the vapor pressure deficit, so like it'll tend to hit that in a steady state, that rate of evaporating, but um, or to hit that vapor pressure, that saturation, but it's going to be slowed down by having more moisture in the air. So it's going to slow down the evaporation of the terps, not the water, but the terps. So I'm thinking like, yeah, initially maybe it's probably better to start at like 65, 67% humidity. And then, yeah, maybe get down to 60-60. That sounds pretty good. Just, I mean, just from practice. I mean, yeah, just from the art of it is going to really determine, yeah, what's really best in the real world. But just, when you're looking at it and thinking about it, like, yeah, it's probably better to keep more humidity in there and and keep in, yeah, a nice constant rate of evaporating more or less by looking at the vapor pressure deficit. If you are changing the temperature, like you just keep it at 60-60. And that's what that's what people have done. Yeah, it's gonna just, adjust whatever. But maybe, yeah, maybe you want to keep it, maybe you don't want a constant. That would be part of the art of it all. And I would think, yeah, at the beginning, maybe you do want a faster dry. And anyway, that's what the Canatrol does, and that's what it looks at, is vapor pressure deficit, which is really what you got to think about if you're gonna vary at least the temperature. and what humidity you're going to correspond to like have a similar situation. But yeah, I'll be getting. So I just ordered this
Yeah.
unit. Yeah, I just bought this thing from Walmart, $300 unit.
So, Jeff, I honestly didn't catch it. So are you using it for weed or are you using it for cigars?
Weed.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm actually, well, I'm not. I see here in Colorado, I might just use it just for storage,
Hmm.
but I might also try to do some of the drying, like the Canatrol. So like actually, well, it's kind of a pain thing to do because it's just shelving that you're supposed to put cut buds on, trimmed buds on actually too. But so they'll recommend like doing a hang dry for a day or two, which I might try something like that. And then just to, like I said, a fast dry for the first day or two might be okay, and just to kind of get a lot of the moisture out to get it down to a level that's reasonable, and then just real slow. And I don't know. You'd have to try different things. But so I'm thinking of I'll be trying out drying in it, but I'll also just be trying to use it just as a humidor. It's kind of new, or it hasn't been so common to have humidors, at least reasonably priced, that could also control humidity.
Hmm.
The old humidors just use the Bovita packs. This one actually has a tray, put water in it. It's kind of like the Canatrol has a little container with a sponge and keep water in, so it can add water. I also talked about like so that even this humidor uses it's not a gas with a compressor. It's like an air conditioner. It uses solid state and it's electronically controlled. It uses this Peltier effect, kind of like a thermocouple in reverse. But anyway, it's a different mechanism. So I'm thinking you can control the temperature more too. So, but also something to think about is when you're cooling something down, if you do have like at the heat exchanger a temperature that's below the dew point. So that means you are going to dry out the environment. But if you can still cool the environment if you keep and without taking out humidity, if you stay above the dew point. So I don't know how these like I'll check it with an infrared gun to see what temperature. They're probably not that advanced where they try to stay above the dew point if they want to keep the humidity in the environment.
Well,
It's
I'm
good.
intrigued now, Jeff, because if it is legit, if it's a good appliance, if it actually works like you're talking about, it could be really useful in really weird environments. We forget, like I was just talking about. I don't know. You assume somehow that everyone is like you, and that's just a natural human thing, I
What's the
guess.
size of the thing? How big is it?
Well, so this one for $300, it's like 40 something liter, and it's like 20 something inches tall. The
Like a mini
Canatrol's
fridge
like
size?
yeah, the Canatrol's more that's like 40 something inches tall, and yeah, so they're not very big. And
Well, I
but
was
I
just
see,
gonna
I'm
say,
also
like, imagine living in Florida or imagine living in the Bahamas or whatever, and you're trying to grow or store weed or something. I mean, that thing is too small for most growers, I think, to dry their weed. But like you say, if it's able to keep the freaking weed above the dew point, I guess you could still dry out your weed even if it was 120 degrees outside and you live in the middle of the desert or something. It's interesting when you talk about it, right? I didn't mean to hijack it with that
yeah,
weird, but
Well, I
well, it's a
think
whole nother
storage
industry.
is
yeah,
great. It's to
go ahead.
store some of your nicer buds in there and like a
Mhm.
nice balls of hash and stuff that you have in there and whatnot. It'd be a nice little storage fridge
Yeah,
Mhm.
the
for
whole
that kind of
cigar
stuff.
industry is actually really interesting. Like, because some people have see, Captain was saying he knew, I think he said he knew someone who had a walk-in humidor. Stores will have them. They're tens of thousands of dollars each. And he was saying, oh, they'll have cigars that are like, I think he said like $200 cigars. And, it's basically like
That's not
they
common. Captain's
like, if,
exaggerating a little bit,
oh,
but
okay.
You can easily, in a walk-in humidor, you could easily have $30,000-$40,000 worth of cigars. Think of like a walk-in wine cellar. If you have a cellar, like for example, I have a
Oh
humidor,
yeah, well that would.
but my humidor could fit basically on top of this laptop. It's a little bit bigger than this, and it just opens, right? And in there, I have, I don't know, a few different boxes of cigars that I've gotten over the years. But if you obviously scale it up to something like this, you can fit a ton more. But now, if you can imagine the one that you walk into, you're talking about 30, 40, 50 boxes of cigars. Each cigar, if it's halfway decent, is over $12, $15. So you can do the math, right? It's a huge amount of money, but it's very rare to have a cigar that's over 50 bucks. There are some
Maybe you said
stuff that might be
boxes.
50 bucks, but you're not going to have cigars, thankfully, are not that expensive. That's
Maybe
one
you
of
said box. But they spend a lot of money. You think we spend a lot
a
of money, and
huge
they're
amount of
really
money. No, a
into
walk-in
our.
humidor. I was just going to say that humidors, having experience in cigars, humidors are actually a surprisingly difficult thing to make well. And there's not very many humidor companies, period. And there's I don't know if there's any humidor companies that make the walk-in, maybe in rich places like New York and Florida and stuff, but definitely not on the West Coast. There's no like humidor companies that go and build your walk-in closet. Usually you have to basically know a guy that knows a guy or call Rich's Cigar Store, for example, and they
Yeah,
might
the Canfield
have
guy would
a
do
guy
it.
that can build it for you. And then it costs you, like you say, imagine basically building a sauna, but the sauna has air intake and outtake and filtered air. And then also it has air conditioning to right around 70 degrees, 70, 72 degrees.
Yeah,
Dehumidification, cigars are different. They actually try to humidify them a little
yeah,
bit
about
more.
70.
They grow them at the
Yeah,
top. So yeah, about 70 degrees, something like that.
yeah, 70, 70. It
I
seemed
keep my
like
butt in a wine cellar. I have a air conditioned wine cellar.
nice.
It's
So
perfect
somewhere,
and perfect where I keep this at like keep it about 60 degrees and about 50% humidity in there year round.
That's funny,
no,
like
so
split
even
the
the
difference when you
humidity
have a
too, huh?
weed humidor, right? Yeah.
It
And
was a, it was
cigars is
a,
there,
it was a
obviously,
wine
right?
cellar, and I was like, "Oh wow, wine cellar." My wife was like, "Oh wow, I like wine." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's not going to be a wine cellar. It's a
Well,
bud cellar."
well, as I'll say, cigar people are also sometimes into very expensive whiskey or bourbon or wood aged spirits and somewhere I read it was someone in the humidor things claiming that they can keep a cigar for 5 years.
You can keep a cigar indefinitely if you want to. If it's I have cigars that are probably 12 years old. I have some Cuban cigars that
Yeah.
are
And it
honestly in there. They'll be fine when I spark them up. If you keep it in the right conditions, it ages. So cigars age just like wine does.
is that because it's
Many
fermented and it's
wine does,
still
or just like we do. Well, what's that?
is that because it's fermented a bit and it's still
Not
doing that?
really. You don't technically want. Okay, that's not exactly true. Maduros, for example, the wrapper is fermented, but you don't really want your cigars to ferment afterwards. Technically, as we know from the sort of more updated knowledge with mycology and everything, experts in our sort of community, we a lot of us know that a lot of aging actually is fermenting. So technically, you're probably right that cigars probably continue to ferment. But the common wisdom doesn't involve fermenting, and you don't really want your
Yeah,
cigars to get sour or ferment, or especially get moldy. You really don't want anything else other than the cigars to be in there.
yeah,
So it's very likely that there is a whole microbial community because we don't live in a sterile world, but you specifically put the cigar humidors are different because they always use Spanish cedar. It has to be Spanish cedar.
yeah.
Any other cedar smells like piss basically when it gets wet in a box. So you don't want it to smell like piss, but Spanish cedar has that nice cedar aroma that will impart well onto the cigars. And by the way, that is a little bit like barrel aging. So when you put the cigars into a cedar humidor, the cigars that didn't smell like cedar before, I mean, they sell them in cedar boxes, but you can get cigars that are not in a cedar box and they don't smell like cedar, and you put them in the cedar box, they will start to smell a little bit like cedar.
Hmm.
Every single humidor smells a little bit different. Every single humidor, this is a mind fuck. Every single humidor has a different cigar history, and that cigar history will actually play off into other things that you age in the future. It's incredibly subtle, and many people don't even give a fuck, right? But if you pay attention, if you can taste it, every single humidor tastes a little bit different. So
Hmm.
cigars that I kept in my humidor, cigars that I kept in my friend's humidor, cigars that we kept in your humidor will all taste a little bit different. Not after 1 month necessarily, but after a couple of years, or you just said after 5 years, for sure, because you're basically barrel aging the
Yeah,
cigar.
it picks up the notes.
Yeah. And every little bit of cedar is different. Everything. Go ahead.
If you pull like a nicely aged cigar out, they usually have like a saran wrap, or not a saran wrap, but like a sleeve that they're in, and you can see a nicely aged cigar has like a little bit of yellowing to the sleeve and stuff. Some of the oils. It looks, but they say once you take it out of that sleeve is when it really starts degrading. So if you're gonna store it for a long
Again, I
time,
wouldn't really say that's true. If you have a humidor, it won't start degrading. If you don't have a humidor, yeah, you have to consider that
They
every
leave
single
them open a lot
degrading
of,
as soon as you take them home. What's
in
that?
the pictures, they're just open. So it's just a tray of cigars just there in the open and
Yeah,
not wrapped
because
at all.
very much we should honestly interact, more of us, the cigar people, the tobacco people, the weed people, but none of us are apparently civilized enough to do this. They basically condition their environment, essentially, kind of like we condition our grow rooms, right? So the whole walk-in humidor is a humidor. So when you walk into a walk-in humidor, literally the whole environment you're standing in a humidor, basically. You're being barrel aged by that humidor, essentially. Whereas, for example, one little humidor, everything in that humidor is one little environment. And humidors are surprisingly not actually sealed. So famously, when you buy a humidor, you always get a dollar bill and you basically put it in you close the box and you try to pass the dollar bill through well, I guess you can't put your finger inside the box now that I think about it, but you close the box on the dollar bill and see how easy it is to pass that dollar bill out. If it's just a tiny bit of resistance, you have a pretty good seal on that box. You want it to be sealed-ish, but you want air to come in and
a
out
little
of
bit of air movement.
Actually, it's not going to be sterile as we see because of that. What's that, Smashed?
No, I was just saying a little bit of air movement, so it's
Mhm.
not stagnant.
Yep, basically. But you want it to be closed, so it's not actually accepting huge amounts of dust or something from the outside world, but you do want the box to be able to breathe. And so, like we were talking about fermenting, shit, it's very likely that there is some kind of a fermentation process going on. And that's probably one of the biggest reasons why a box or any different box or every different humidor will taste a little bit different than every other humidor. But who knows? I don't know I don't.
I love the smell of a cigar box.
Mhm.
My godfather used to have a liquor store, and he'd send up empty cigar boxes and Crown Royal bags and stuff. And I used to just store all my like knickknacks in like cigar boxes.
Oh yeah, cedar trees or something else. One thing I
Yeah.
used to love to do when I was a kid, and I guess not bashful, is whenever we would go down to California or something, I'd love to go up and smell the trees, just like
Why
smell
not?
freaking shit, because they smell amazing. They smell like fucking vanilla, and
I smell flowers all the time.
pardon.
I go around smelling flowers and stuff.
Oh yeah, no, I'll still smell flowers, but I guess I don't smell. I was at the farmer's market, well, I guess a farmer's fruit stand the other, I don't know, like a month ago or something, and I was smelling a tomato, and the guy that runs the fruit stand comes out, and he's like, "What the fuck? I've never seen someone smelling a tomato." I'm all bashful, and I put it down, but I'm like, "The fuck? I smell tomatoes, man. If it's a good tomato, it's gonna smell tomatoish." No?
Have you ever noticed? Like I was working on plucked a couple tomatoes off my plant the other day, and it has an aroma. Like
Oh
the
yeah.
tomato plant itself has like I
Oh, they're
can't
skunky.
describe
Yeah.
it.
Hmm. No, they're very much the same compounds, actually. They're not related, but they grow very similarly, right? They have similar soil requirements. I mean, tomatoes are obviously vines, right? So you got to support them, but they're both skunky, kind of toxic plants to bugs, right? Like basically, tomatoes are what they're trying to do is they're trying to tell bugs to fuck off because they're going to be growing these amazing, luscious fruits that all the bugs are going to want to eat, and the tomato doesn't want all the bugs to eat their fruits before they're ripe enough to actually have seeds, right? So the tomato's like, fuck off, fuck off, fuck off. Isn't that kind of funny when you think about it? Like, imagine the terpenes as language, and the language is "get the fuck out of here, motherfucker."
I think when I'm walking
Rosemary.
through, I think
Rosemary is telling you
a
to
lot of
sit and spin. Go
I
ahead.
can do a lot of my grocery shopping by smell, walking through the vegetable and produce
Yep.
section. Like if I walk by peaches, it's like, oh my god, it smells so good. I'm buying some peaches now. If I walk by that area, they don't smell good. I keep on walking by until something else smell. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
especially the fruits and all. Nose is the super important. I mean, I can't imagine not being allowed to smell some vegetables or people saying something about it.
That's it. The nose knows. No, I was kind of surprised
Yeah.
with the guy. I mean, I wasn't bashful. I guess I was laughing with the
Yeah.
guy, but I was kind of surprised. He was telling me like, "Oh, I know that people smell apples, and what was the other one, melons or some shit." But he's like, "Oh, I haven't seen
Yeah.
people smelling tomatoes." I'm like, "Why wouldn't you smell a tomato? That's one of the first things that's going to be papery. If it doesn't smell like a tomato, it's going to be just like
You're gonna cut it open, it's gonna be all
mealy
pale.
and papery. 100%. Yeah, it's gonna be pale inside. Fuck right off with that tomato shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
thankfully that farm stand is not like that. But I mean, I'm surprised that he hasn't smelled tomatoes. I don't know. And the dude, he's not like some kind of a vegetable Philistine or something. Like the guy was telling me all about his Korean melons and what else. His favorite melon is this other specific kind of honeydew melon. So like the guy knows his veggies. So I'm surprised that he wasn't smelling tomato. That's got to be my favorite word that I've come up on this show, a vegetable Philistine. What are you, some kind of a vegetable Philistine? I should make a t-shirt with that. That'd be a good strain name. That'd be a good
Cold.
too, honestly. What's that, Smash?
It's cold out.
Is it? You need to go to the punk
Yeah, I'm out here with the plant.
vegetable Philistines. They're gonna rock your world.
Okay, I think I'm gonna take off. I got some shit I gotta take care of
Good
today.
to see you, North Star.
So jump out. Everyone have a good day and
Have a good
happy
one.
harvest.
Yeah, man. You
Take it
too.
easy.
Cheers. Here, let me
Bye.
spotlight your video here, Smash. Then we might bounce in a few minutes as well. Oh, did he just freeze?
So this is the one I'm really like trying to keep as long as I can.
Smash, are you robot?
Um,
Just me.
I gotta cut these down. Hold on, let me shut my Wi-Fi off. It doesn't come.
Hello?
Hopefully he'll be back. Oh, there he is.
There you go. Everybody's back now.
Okay. So yeah, these are pretty much, these should be, I should just harvest these ones. This one is done pretty much. It's just getting bud rot now. Same thing with this one, just getting bud rot now. This one's way farther behind everything else because it's the one I reversed. Um, it has like, I don't know if those are seeds yet or if those are just the pollen sacs. I think it's a little bit of both mixed in. And
Can
this,
you Smash, hold on a sec. Can you move closer and make sure that it's focused, but don't move too close, and then try to zoom the camera in, maybe?
maybe.
So that's too close because it won't focus. So move back a little bit so it'll focus, and then basically just zoom the screen.
I don't think I
I
can.
don't know if Zoom will let you zoom the screen. Fuck. Yeah,
Maybe
so
if I
I shit from
let
that.
me switch it to this camera. Let me try this actually. Clean this one off.
This is a long shot, but you don't have a magnifying glass, do you?
Not over here. I'm actually in the shed. I'll take some pictures. And I'll post them and I'll send them. But yeah, I think I'm gonna cut this girl down. It's pretty much it's done. It's now just getting bud rot.
Hmm.
I don't know if there's any seeds in it. I don't think there is. It did really good. It just started like this bud rot really just started to hit it.
Suffoil X should kill bud rot. If you have, I don't know if you've gotten a jug of that. That shit's legit. I've recommended it a million times, and I'd recommend it every time. Basically, it works for most things. Honestly, it should kill the bud rot if you want to spray it and let it keep running just for the seeds. Like if you're not going to smoke it, Suffoil says that it's safe to spray on the day of harvest and everything else. I don't know, man. It is just canola oil, so it's probably perfectly safe to consume. I don't know if it's safe to smoke necessarily because it is again like a vegetable oil, but what do I know? It's probably less bad than a lot of things. Definitely less bad than most pesticides, that's for sure. But if you're just going to do it for seeds, I would spray the fuck out of that with Sulfoyl X. Like I brought in my sour Morgana. I basically only cut like half of the plant because I'm trying to re-veg her and everything else. And so I just sprayed the absolute shit out of her with Sulfoyl X because I'm not going to smoke that flower. I
So
veg.
what I'm thinking is these are in pots. There's two. The one I reversed is the smallest one because it was the latest bloomer. Latest flipping to flower. So this is the one I reversed. And then there's this plant in the same pot with it right here. And the one that's in the pot with it doesn't really have any bud rot at all. So I'm thinking I should just get rid of the stuff that does have the bud rot, this plant, and then this is a kosher kush, like down here, if you the whole fucking bud that's pretty much gone.
That's probably good.
So I'm probably just gonna cut those two down and try to let these two survive and hopefully like let this one is the main focus. If this one starts getting crazy bud rot, it'll just come down and we'll just work on this one. I can also maybe flip a plant real quick and put it in here and then bring it back inside.
Oh,
when it's
because she's got pollen. That reversal has pollen now.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you know what you should do is you should save that pollen.
That's what I was thinking if I don't have anything out here, if it's not working or if it's gonna end, I'm gonna come out here and collect all the pollen I can.
Hmm.
And then I'll just pick a female inside and I'll paintbrush it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I pop more. Like I'm actually really impressed with this. The Chem Dog to Chem 91 Calio. No PM. That's kosher kush bag seed, and it's giving me PM, bud rot, fucking everything.
Mm.
This one is one of mine, and it really just started to get the bud rot. If I harvested 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, it would have been perfect. This one really resilient, actually. Like no bud rot, no PM. Same thing with this one. There was a little bit of PM on this one of these big leaves, but I sprayed it down and
Hi, handsome boy. You're such a good boy.
But yeah, this was the emergency setup. 4-foot T8s. We're in my shed. That's the garden actually out there. I'm happy I put them into pots and not the ground because I was able to like there was roots in the ground. When I pulled them up, I definitely ripped some roots out, but I think there's enough within the pots that they're fine.
Huh. Easy. Easy, motherfucker. Oh, sorry, guys.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were talking to us.
But yeah, it was raining for 2 days straight. And I was like, yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I would prepare for the eventuality you're not going to get a whole lot of seeds off of that, and I would try it again. Basically, I would try to get that other plant again and reverse it again. If you have hopefully a cut of it and reverse it again, hope for the best, but plan for the worst. Because
that's what I am. I already ordered more STS. I've already started to think about a breeding chamber inside. So if this doesn't work, then we're gonna do it inside in a little like I'm gonna buy I don't know, one of the big totes and make a little breeding chamber with filters and stuff. So the pollen doesn't get spread everywhere.
No reason not to just make a real tent, like it's really not that difficult to isolate pollen. I mean, I can tell you from experience, it's really simple to isolate pollen. You can have a breeding chamber in the middle of a flowering garden and not have any fucking problems. You just have to make sure that the breeding chamber itself has negative pressure, basically. So you're sucking air essentially into a filter, and you're also filtering air from the outside. So basically, it's an isolated space within a space, and boom, you just never have any problems. And even when you water, as long as you have negative pressure, if you open up that, like if it's a tent, if you open up the tent a little way so you still have negative pressure, it still sucks in air and sucks in the pollen into the filter. So basically, you can have an active pollination environment in the middle of a flower garden and not have any fucking problems. People get way too paranoid about pollen. I think we
I'm
might start saying our good
just
evenings.
getting
What's that,
started.
Smash?
I've just seen the flower, and that's
I can't hear you. Now, ironically, we should probably go back to
Get my
Wi-Fi. All right, well, hopefully in a second. All right. Oh, look at that.
again.
We'll say hello to him and then probably bounce.
Flora.
Cheers, Flora. Good to see you. What's Southern Vermont Vintage saying? He's saying do some canola oil research for this application.
That happens.
I would need it. Southern VT, what are you trying to say? Are you saying you did some canola oil research, or are you telling us to do some canola oil research? I've gone back and forth with canola oil, honestly. I've used it plenty of times for cooking, and I've been kind of like skeptical about it. These days, I just honestly prefer to use other oils. I'm not racist against canola oil or something. I haven't made up my mind, honestly.
Olive.
There's all this like I think it's like a bunch of right wing stuff mostly. So some of it, I have to be honest, just goes in one ear out in the other. But there is some scuttlebutt about canola oil. Well, for example, one of my formerly favorite YouTube channels, the guy's kind of gone off the deep end politically. AVE, he just used to do really fun goofball tool shit and engineering and whatever fun stuff. He did a video about several different
look
cooking
good.
oils that he put on a
It
hot
doesn't look
plate
good.
and basically heated up until they did something, until they did nothing, basically, until they just basically continue to be viscous, like lard and a couple other animal fats, or if they actually plasticized, like canola oil did, and actually the Costco olive oil plasticized as well, polymerized rather. What's that, Jeff?
Surprised on it didn't look good though, but I'll pull this up again. This was that list I asked ChatGPT to make for me.
Oh.
There's
Yeah, I
canola
didn't mean to
oil that
interrupt.
causes
Okay.
negative impact on memory, affects heart health. Additionally, highly processed. But yeah, I don't know. I think
Olive oil.
Yeah, rasp seed.
Rapeseed oil. That's one fair criticism, that it is a little bit more processed than some other oils. It has a higher smoke point though, so if you're definitely frying stuff or something, olive oil is not really ideal because it basically breaks down and actually starts to become harmful. Actually, when you cook with it at high temperatures, the guy ABE was saying peanut oil. Peanut oil is spectacular for high temperatures. So
I like lard.
oil's cheap though. That's one advantage, I guess. Go ahead, Smash.
One of these places I worked, we'd get these bricks in. It was just solid, and you'd put it in the fryer and turn it on, and it would turn to oil.
Was it lard?
I think it was pure lard. I'm not positive, but
Lard actually works great for frying, ironically. Like it's kind of disgusting to think about it, but yeah, like lard comes from pigs and the fuck from cows is oh my God, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's whatever. It's the same fat basically, but it's a different name because it comes from cows. And I think the fat from lamb is actually called something else. What's that, Flora?
I said I'd go with the beef
Tallow.
tallow.
Tallow, that's what it is. That's what McDonald's used to use, beef tallow for their French fries, and so now they don't use beef tallow; they use beef flavoring.
supposedly
Those cubes you buy, they're like beef. What exactly is that? Is that like some
beef stock?
synthetic shit, or what are those? Like the
yeah,
cubes
like the chicken stock.
Like bouillon. Oh, it's just basically beef stock. It's basically beef bones and stuff. Well, beef. Ah, shit. Slaughterhouses these days are so efficient and stripping off every piece of meat off the cow that it's probably just beef bones, honestly, cooked down. Because I mean, like, yeah, they're not going to skip even one penny. But then they'll cook down those bones. Basically, the marrow in the bones is. People are always surprised how good marrow tastes. It's
So good.
spectacular. Dogs are geniuses, honestly. It's kind of gross to suck bones, but it's delicious. All that flavor can combine into, because the bones themselves don't really have that much flavor. It's really the marrow, and that cooks down into yeah, they just basically reduce the water pretty much. So same thing with chicken. Imagine just like concentrated chicken juice. That's basically what a bouillon cube is.
Green juice. Dehydrated chicken.
Has anyone ever seen a car that runs off a fryer, like fry oil?
Oh, I've seen those. Yeah, the French fry fryers. Less lately. I don't know why, but we used to have a bunch of them in
That's
Poland.
Is that the same as the biodiesel stuff?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, same idea.
Now, the only happy for 420, everybody. But the only problem with the canola or the French fry oil like that is, especially if it's outside, you have to process it a whole bunch of times to get the oil out or to get the water out and also get like crap out of it that you don't want to put to your engine as well.
Mm.
Yeah, you gotta think they're frying chicken in it, and they're just taking it and putting out there. So you build this system where it has a funnel and a filter. You funnel all of it into a bigger barrel, and then once you funnel and filter it, you heat it up, and it will help get rid of all the extra oil, all the extra water and shit. A lot of them have covers too. I mean, water and oil separate pretty good.
Some coffee here. Let's see here. Oh, Flora, Joel just took off. We were about to end the show instead of just start the show. You might be an hour late, so we're probably wrapping up a little bit. But I'll make a coffee first, maybe, and you can say hello. We haven't talked to you for a bit.
Coffee right now.
What was let's see here. What was Southern VT saying?
You got any cannabis events coming up, Fume?
No, not really. Southern Vermont Venture says, I read a little bit about it. Everyone should. It's all political in a way, not good or healthy for you. So he kind of says both of the things that I was thinking, I guess, on one side and on the other. Well, long story short, Vermont Vintage is not a fan. I guess worth looking into, I suppose. I'm not super worried about Suffoil X because I guess in theory that's a good thought, but I'm like, the oil evaporates, like it doesn't stay on there. The whole point is that it evaporates off the flour. If it stayed on there, I would be very upset. So if you did spray it the day of harvest, I don't know about that. But if you're using it on green plants, on plants that you're going to basically end up using for seed, I wouldn't be preoccupied because I would feel like even if it isn't healthy for you, canola oil is still useful for something. I think that's one of the things that it's probably useful for is plant pesticide kind of things, right? Like that. I feel like
Are you
it's
saying canola oils and stuff oil?
Suffoil X is basically canola canola oil. I think I can look up the jug. Hold on.
A hell of a lot more money. Because that Suffoil X is not cheap. Oh, I have cheap internet.
I don't think I've ever used top oil. I've used plant therapy, which is the same idea, I think.
I've seen it. I've used it silly at work but I've never bought it myself or used it at home.
I was gonna say, actually, my old jug I've had for 3 years probably because it's like a 2-gallon jug that lasts forever. It says mineral oil. On the website, I vividly remember it saying canola oil, so I don't know if they've changed the. Here, I can always look it up. Why not?
Okay, so I changed my image to a little bit better. It still doesn't have the full question, but it's kind of cool to see how you can use ChatGPT to come up with things. So I asked for a list.
I've actually been hearing a lot of like bad things about ChatGPT. Like it's pulling not fake information, not right information, and spewing it out as it's right, and it's doing it more and more.
It depends what you.
LLM
It depends how
hallucinate
you ask it.
wildly.
Yeah,
Very careful with.
but it's good. So this is another way though to use it, like to actually, so here I'm asking it to produce a list. I'm not just asking for information. So it's just basically doing some calculations and looking up stuff. And it actually came out pretty good. Like the question was it basically repeats the question and the answer. And like I asked for a list of relative humidities from 70 to
If you run
55 degrees Fahrenheit to keep
71%, 71.8 at 70 degrees. Doesn't that seem like a bit high? Unless you're in veg.
71%. Oh, this is for drying. This was for drying. Oh, so this was like
want to bloom in 71% humidity.
That was to keep to get 60-60.
What's that
and to
thing
have the same
It's showing the mineral oil.
Same vapor pressure. They have the same vapor pressure at 60-60. The different relative humidities.
Hey Jeff, can you pull up that machine you bought? I want to look at it.
I put up
if I can.
60 Fahrenheit. Relative humidity is 60.
So this keeps the same vapor pressure deficit.
71's pretty moist.
Yeah, but what the idea of like the basis is that they're trying to keep the dew point. So the higher the temperature, the higher the humidity to keep a dew point to pushing on the bud to try to hold in all the terpenes as long as they can.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Canatrol is trying to do, but I was just wondering like how I would set like this humidor that I bought. You set temperature and relative humidity. The Canatrol you said dew point, or you could also set how many days drying you want. If you want drying, because you could use it for drying or for storage, basically curing storage. And so then you might want to set dew point. What was that?
What's the temperature and humidity that the source that you're using recommends for storage, long-term storage? And if you're gonna store the cannabis for 30 days or more, what's their recommended guidelines for their humidity and temp?
I'm not sure what they recommend.
Because it seems
like Poon was saying 70 and 70s for cigars.
Like this is one of the most highly debated parts is the finishing, right? It's like everybody's got their opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some of it might become opinion because some of it's preference, right? Like some people like really fresh tasting weed, but still has chlorophyll taste for some reason. And then there's other people where I don't want to taste chlorophyll myself.
Right.
My favorite time to smoke weed is probably right after the dry hang. Like after 2 weeks when you're going to put it in the jars.
I do always like that. It's like a grower's treat, basically, to get the first little sample of it. It's almost like fresh frozen or something. But I also like that same flower when it's cured too. And I always remember Stevie, who I talk about all the time. He came to my tasting group all the time. He was one of the regulars, and he was known for always having kind of older flower. Like he was not because he was a shitty grower or something. He just prefers older flower, and he would cure it literally for a couple of years.
Wow.
Sometimes would laugh, would be like, "Oh yeah, Stevie," because at first I can't remember. He only had some fresh stuff that he brought, and so we would laugh at him basically for this. But sure enough, one day he brought his blueberry sativa. It was basically the same line or very similar line to what Lemon Hoko has. So if you've ever smoked any of Lemon Hoko's blueberry lines, it's that same kind of not aggressively sativa, but definitely sativa-ish blueberry. The blueberry surprisingly leans a little bit indica. It's a little bit more sleepy, a little more in the couch. This blueberry sativa is definitely more energetic and kind of goofy. Meanwhile, the flavor is rich fucking blueberry. He whipped out the jar of this 2-year-old weed, and mind you, it actually looked like 2-year-old weed. It looked kind of oxidized and everything, but as soon as he cracked the jar, it was like candied blueberry just opened up in the entire room, and he won either first or second place. I want to say Canafam Dynamics won first place, I think, and he had some crazy gassy shit, so it wasn't a surprise that he won that. And then the Blueberry came right behind that, and we had a ton of great flower that night. The Blueberry Sativa definitely was spectacular. And mind you, again, it was 2-year-old wheat. He just cured it super low, super slow. There's been a few people who passed through the show. Like Wes used to smoke his weed, I want to say, like after a year. There's been a few people who like to cure their weed. And that's key. They just have to cure super low, super slow.
And they gotta keep it sealed. They can't fuck with it.
Ifumi did the Stevie guy, did he cure in jars or did he use turkey bags? Do you know?
Probably jars.
Think glass jars. It was Cannabizium that used the steel canna, whatever the fuck.
I like those cannibals too.
Oh, they're super, but they're expensive as ass.
They make actual just regular, just like almost the same thing. Aluminum base. It's got a seal, a top. I like them. This is just a basic steel storage container that can seal.
Hi, buddy.
Stainless steel canister with airtight lid is what it was called. And I have a couple of these, and they work really good. I like them because when you have like a bigger harvest on one or two plants, these are definitely like I can fit 2 jarfuls in here, 2 of the big jars almost.
Those, I had 4 of those. I had the big ones, the 2.2 pounders. Gotta watch people steal those fucking things from you, man. Don't ever let them out.
Oh yeah, they're expensive. Like especially the
I got stolen from
name
me.
brand ones.
2 left, but I had like, yeah, I had every size.
I like them.
I like them.
I
They're
think
good.
the metal helps them stay a little colder.
Yeah.
Because every time I pick them up, I'll pick that up and then I'll pick up a
Lifetime,
glass
right?
jar. It feels
That's the other
colder.
thing, too.
Yeah.
When you're buying it, you got to understand like this thing's gonna last for a lifetime. Like the only part of it that you have to change is there's a rubber seal inside.
Yeah, the gasket.
That seal lasts for years. You know, I'm still using the same seal.
His internet went out. Yeah, the gasket steel stretch on them, so you gotta change them out every like couple of years. But other than that, yeah, they're great.
Yeah. Like you said, they were expensive.
Yeah, but if you
Super
go
expensive.
for the just stainless steel canister storage, they're not that much more than jars. The only reason
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a good
Yeah,
stainless steel, like he's saying,
I just use canning
stainless
jars.
steel like pot that you would cook like spaghetti in or something, like there's some cost to that, right? That pot's not $1, right? And basically imagine like a real high quality pot and it's got like welded on little fasteners on it for the lid to like snap the lid on. And like, I mean, I don't know. I think
Boy.
get what you pay. I think that's quality.
Roboting.
Sorry, Humidor, I missed what you said.
Oh, I was just
I think
talking
we're all
about,
like got a small
it's
delay.
way cheaper. It's way cheaper or way more expensive than canning jars. I just use Ball or what's the other company? Because there's like the two main. Fuck, I can't find a jar right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, I would use
I use
whatever
those too.
canning
I use
jars,
every
Kel or whatever the fuck it's called. But they're easy. You can get them in any store. You can get new lids for them anytime you want. You can throw them in the dishwasher if you really wanted to. Although I don't
Yeah.
like to throw it in the dishwasher for weed stuff,
So-
but you could. Go ahead.
I imagine you're using the 64-ounce jar, which is a good size, good air volume and space, right? The thing with the sea vaults is they have like the 2.2 pound ones. So if you have a you know, like you can stick like, you know, say you grow a couple plants or something of one strain, like stick it all in one place. You know, it's all curing at the same rate and everything.
Good boy.
Timu, man, has everything. It's so funny.
But the jar, like you said, the jars, it's plastic. They work great.
Don't let Mrs. D hear you say that, Smash. She loves
What
TV.
So up in Washington, like I lived a long time up there, you guys know, and like I felt like when I was learning and everybody I knew, like everybody used the ball jars or the other brand, which I also can't think of. I got the logo in my head, but I can't think of the fucking name.
Doesn't it
Um,
start with you?
I just thought of it. It wasn't Cal, it's her.
up north, up north, like the jar thing. Like I think it's almost like a cultural thing. Like it's like the jar thing was like a thing, right? But when I came down to SoCal, people look at me like I'm like fucking stupid. Like turkey bags everywhere. You go to all the grow shops, turkey bags everywhere. Go anywhere. Like now it's become this new thing is this Turp Lock bag thing, which I bought some. I don't know
I
if I
hear
didn't use them
everyone,
right. I
dude.
don't know.
Everyone's talking about those, and I keep telling them it's just a fucking Mylar bag.
Well, apparently it's got something where it can release. I don't know. It's
I wouldn't
they,
store my weed in plastic. I don't know why turkey bags and all that shit's so popular. Like, I guess Mylar is not plastic, but I don't know. I don't want my shit interacting with
I
whatever.
mean,
Not only
either.
that, but a bag is flexible, so the buds are going to get squished around and stuff if you move them,
Well,
right? For me,
it's also
everyone's different about
formed
it, right? But
to
pardon?
squeeze your buds. The more you put in, the more pressure the sides are going to put
Yep,
on the weed.
that's right. It's going to squeeze all into the.
I feel like it's a little bit different flavor too. Profile comes out
Mm-hmm.
the jar versus
I mean, I have these are all like half empty. Okay, this one is empty. A jar. Okay, this one is actually one with very pretty fruits on it, basically. Oh, and
that's
this is
the other
ball
company,
jar.
right?
Pardon? Yeah, this is ball.
Well,
This is a ball
There's
wide
all
mouth
the.
from like mama. What's that?
I'm gonna have to go look for a jar because yeah, it's bugging me now that I can't remember the name of the other one because it's like super common.
Her.
Kerr. Oh, that's right, Kerr. Yeah,
yeah. Oh,
yeah.
So 152 fluid ounce airtight clamp. It's got a clear lid, so you'd have to tape the
Okay,
lids.
that's the thing, Joe. Fumi, what lids do you use? You use the kind that have the flat piece that
I
with
just
the ring.
I just usually use the, I guess sometimes I haven't replaced this one very recently, but I just usually use the canning lids because I don't usually go right up to the surface. So it's not really a big deal if it just kind of clamps down like that. I've never really had any interaction. It's food safe. So I know people say that the terpenes interact with that seal, but I'm not really super worried about it. I don't actually seal it. I don't, throw it in under, hot water. Actually, you could seal these jars if you wanted to. You could seal them super fast with the weed inside. You just literally throw them in hot water and take them right out before the glass really has a chance to heat up. But it's so handy for me because I know each jar has about an ounce of weed. If it's marfy weed, it might be a little bit less than an ounce. If it's super dense weed, a little bit more than an ounce, but it's somewhere around an ounce. What was I going to say? Or not an ounce, about 25 grams, I guess. So about an ounce and a half, rather, right? So whatever. But if I have, let's say, if I look at the shelf, I see 12 of these jars, I know about how much weed I have. I can kind of set it and forget it. I used to have in the old place, I used to have a root cellar. So I'd basically put all my weed in that root cellar where it was like 55 degrees and dark all the time. So like the weed was perfectly curing in the beautiful glass, no plastic exposure. Like again, I don't have shares in fucking Ball or Kerr, so it's not like I'm gonna make money from you buying them. I just think that's the weed.
I'm sensing that you're very cautious microplastics.
100%. I think it's going to be one of the biggest
I
issues that
think
people
that's
talk
the
about.
biggest.
Yep.
That's
You
fucking
know.
us. Men. That's fucking men up more than anything right now. Like our reproductive cycle, bunch of stuff.
I really like the jars that are tinted amber or
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a
some
couple
blue
years
ones.
ago. Remember the purple jars like in 2020? They had like the limited edition.
Yeah,
Yeah, I bought a
I
bunch.
think it helps with because
they
the
have
clear
the-
ones.
It does because it keeps UV out. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're more expensive. Like if you're just trying to buy the
They're not
tinted
that bad. Sometimes you can get them. Normally, you get them by the singles, which is unfortunately, but sometimes you can find stores that have them basically by the case. And if you can get them by the case, they're only a few dollars more. So basically,
Okay.
look around here in the Northwest, we have a big grocery chain. Well, it's not a huge grocery chain, but it's a grocery chain called Winco, and they usually have the dark wide mouth jars during canning season, but only really during canning season. So I don't know, wherever you are, look for a kind of family oriented grocery store. They those, you know what I mean? But who knows?
Amazon Hardware, they must know. They carry like
Hardware
a bunch
stores,
of,
Ace Hardware would definitely be able to get those for sure.
yeah,
They
it's
order everything in the Ace catalog.
Abishon's like the same as Ace, pretty much. It's still kind of like small. They're corporate, but not huge corporate, not like Home Depot.
Hmm.
And most of the stores are ran by someone in the city, like that owns them. The one I go to must know about growers and stuff because they have like a bunch of Costa Maine, they have a bunch of Fox Farm soils and stuff. And then like you'll all of a sudden it'll get towards like harvest season and you'll see their jars just stack up. They put out like 2 pallets out there and they disappear pretty quick.
Cake and the Cup is talking shit about jars. He's saying jars take up meters of cupboard space. That's true when empty or full. Jars need to be washed all the time. I wouldn't say all the time, but they do need to be washed. Jars need to be stored in the dark. Well, I would say anything that you store your weed in is going to have to be washed unless it's disposable. And if it is disposable, like Laura and I were talking about, I'm just not going to put my weed in something plastic. Again, I guess Mylar is different because it's actually a metal. And so I haven't really looked into that, to be honest. But I would assume because everyone is cheap as fuck these days, I would assume even a Mylar balloon somehow has some goddamn shit in it that's going to kill you. Just because apparently that's what things are these days. I'm being
I think
an ass.
Mylar's plastic.
Pardon?
Mylar's plastic, isn't it?
Mylar plastic? Okay, here, let's look up
I
Mylar.
think it's a mix.
It's in a plain, very plainer.
Because if you look at the inside of a Mylar, it has a
It's polyester
reflector.
film. Yep. That's what it is.
Like,
Here, I thought it
is
was a
it
metal.
like
I thought it was like
injected?
aluminum foil film or something. No, it is. Who just joined us? Hardcore just joined us.
Block UV
Hard
and stuff like that.
Polyester
Claims,
film made from stretched polyethylene terephthalate or PET and is used for its high tensile
That
strength,
sounds
technical stability, dimensional stability, transparency, reflectivity when metallized. See, I thought it was metal, gas and moisture barrier properties, and electrical insulation. Film is
What is
biaxial
metal?
oriented, kind of like your mama.
That's super
Uh,
healthy.
What's that?
Nice.
Sounds super.
some of it was conducting electricity, man, I think, because that's used for protecting like chips,
Well,
boards,
does it?
when you get them.
Substrate lining in dairy goods such as yogurt. White PLT works. The lidding. Oh, a lid. Okay.
I mean, they use it for a ton of shit, but we've used a lot of different things for a ton of shit that are not necessarily good for us.
I always use these Noxzema jars.
Paranoid about plastic, but I think it's definitely worth trying to eliminate plastic from your food chain, from your fucking smokable items chain, etc. What's that, Hardcore?
I always use these Noxzema jars. And then I just find a lid. Like I think this is probably from like a seasoned salt container or something. I've got a bunch of these.
There's those other jars too. That special black glass, like the guy. What's that guy? Dresses looks like Hindi, well known. Can't think of his name.
I'm sure
Anyway,
I've got some here too, but
there's those
a lot of little apothecary jars.
Swami, that guy Swami's not the seed guy.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
two. There's the old one.
Yep.
He's got a cannabis brand that sells flower here in California, and it's
all
really
dark.
really
Jars. Yep.
yeah, his weed is really expensive. Not because his weed is super expensive. It's because it comes in like a $30 glass jar when you buy an eighth or $20 glass jar.
Holy shit.
And but the jar is pretty cool. But whatever that glass is, he says it on his website, I'm sure. But I'm sure that'd be really good. But I don't know. That's vanity at some point too.
You don't need much, honestly. You could if you wanted to, you just paint the jar if you don't want light to get in, candidly.
I've
I don't know.
seen
They're so inexpensive. I don't know why anyone would talk shit about jars because literally you can get how much is it? 12 or 16? Now I can't even think of how many. Okay, it's probably the same that I have here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I guess it's 16. No, it's 12. 12 jars because it's 3 deep and 4 wide, I think. I think
the smaller
jars-
one.
What your mother
But
likes.
anyway, so you get them for like $16. It's a little over $1 a jar. I can live with that for what, like I said, 25, 27 grams. I guess I've fit up to 30 grams if you really stuff it in there. If it was something like cookies, you could probably
I
throw
think
30 grams, but
I think you get 9 of these, the big 64s.
I have some of those. I didn't like them. I guess this is my problem. I kind of want my weed to be in discrete amounts. I guess I don't want to break up my weed and have to decant it into other things. Basically, that's my thing. So in that circumstance, I would age my weed in a few of those large ones, and I bought a few of them for that idea. And then the idea was, okay, every once in a while I'll decant into these smaller jars. But what I started to realize is when I decant that larger jar, now half the jar is empty of weed. And I'm like, okay, so that jar basically is like filled with air now instead of weed. Like it's probably not a huge difference, but I felt like it would age differently or age faster. So I thought like, okay, these guys, until I crack the jar open, they're just aging nice and discreetly in that one small space. Your mileage may vary, perhaps it's better to age in a large space. I don't know. Look at that kitty cat.
He fetches.
I don't know. I just don't. I wouldn't. I don't know. I wouldn't use a Mylar bag like those grow bags.
I
There's
don't
so
like
many
them.
people talking about them, and I'm like, why? Like, yeah, cool. It's a bag you put your weed in, but
It's for cash prepping, like if you want the cheapest, easiest way to take your money to or take your money, that's kind of Freudian slip, take your product to the guy that has the money, Mylar bag, right? And
they're
and
expensive too, though. They're not cheap Mylars.
well, that's because a plastic bag would actually break apart. Like honestly, if you had a good gassy strain, for example, it doesn't even have to be a gassy strain. Anything clean in it, probably, if you put it in a plastic bag, chances are the plastic bag will start to fall apart. I'm not even joking. It'll probably start to get brittle at first, and it might literally start to fall apart. Maybe not an hour, but like in a couple, 3, 4 days. And when you think about, like I say, cash croppers basically selling pounds, that person has to now transport that weed somewhere. Some piece of shit plastic bag is not going to be up for the task.
Let's see how much they are.
Well, you got it. Good boy.
Yeah, those let's see, Grove bags. Let's see. What are these things made out of? Let's see.
Kick it over.
Yeah, I've used those grow bags. I still use them.
Yeah,
But
I'm wondering what
around here
they're
it's so
actually
dry.
made.
You could put something in there when it's still wet, and it'll just do that last extra bit in there. Yeah, it seems nice. It seems to give that real slow, dry, kind of like what I'm talking about, keeping a constant VPD, where it just gets a nice texture, that really cured texture on the leaf and bud.
Another interesting thing, and I've never had a chance to really put this into practice, but I've hypothesized it. So I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. Stainless steel, as many people know, is not actually stainless. It's just stain resistant, basically. It's stain resistant because they add a couple different things, chromium or a couple different other compounds they could add to make it stainless. The pan, like for example, a stainless knife or a pan or whatever, if you use it, it will actually get stained, right? Because every metal has a tendency to basically combine with other things. I'm sure you could say this in a much more educated way, like Jeff, I'm sure could say this in a much smarter way. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think that there's basically no metal other than gold, for example, that you could store your weed in and have no interaction with the metal. So basically the weed molecules are going to bond with the metal molecules in some way, and you're going to get some kind of a metal taste to your weed. Might be super fucking subtle, and I am thinking out loud, so I'm hoping that you guys will have some input. But my thinking process is that glass is basically inert. It's essentially melted sand that's more inert than steel is for what it's worth. It's a very poor conductor. So, for example, they put literally insulators basically on telephone poles in the US. I guess people listen to us from other countries, so you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But in the US, the electrical lines are run on telephone poles, and they literally, the insulators they use are usually glass because it's such a poor conductor of electricity or anything else. Whereas steel, famously is a fantastic conductor of electricity and heat because you use it for frying pans. You want a frying pan to conduct heat very, very well, right? So the most expensive frying pans usually are copper frying pans, or pans in general, I guess, saute pan, whatever, soup pans, they're going to be copper because copper conducts electricity. Or
Copper's $5 a
so
pound.
spectacular. Well, the copper pans are fucking cost more than your mama on a good night. That's not great of a joke, but at least it was an attempt. Anyway, my thought process is that anything steel, and mind you, I'm not going to die on this hill or something, but I remember my friend Cannabesian used to store all his weed actually in those Canavolts, and he was telling me like, oh yeah, we broke down one year, I think a couple of years before he told me this, and we bought all Canavolts. And mind you, you don't understand how many Canavolts he needed because Cannabesian is a pretty good grower and has a fair amount of plants. So you just don't understand how many Canavolts. If however many Canavolts you think he had, it was a larger number than that. And so it was a substantial investment in Canavolts. And so we were talking about it. Ever since then, I've kind of hypothesized about this, and I've wondered, all right, is there going to be, because he said, oh, there's no impact on the weed. It just tastes like the weed. Like it ages just like a weed. Like he thought it was so pure and clean and whatever. And like I'm
On my
saying,
computer.
anytime you store something in metal, there's going to be a little bit of a metal tinge to it. Perhaps I'm wrong. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think it has to do with quality of metal, just like most things. There's different grades of steel. There's different grades of fucking different factories probably
There is
taking.
no such thing as a truly stainless steel. I mean, you can basically make it rust resistant because it's not actually for stains. It's rust, basically rust resistant. But it will rust. I mean, my pocket knife is S90V or whatever the fuck. If I left it out in the rain, it would eventually rust. Same thing with this Army knife. About the most rust-proof thing you could ever find in your life is a goddamn actual Swiss Army knife. And yet, if you've ever accidentally left one outside or something, or just lost one, I've found
surface
Army
rust.
knives on a trail. Like it will eventually rust. It's metal. It will fucking rust.
So most of the time with like stainless, it will be like surface rust where you can almost wipe it off to an extent. Then there's real shitty metals that if you leave out, like especially where I live, if you leave out like a cheap aluminum grill or something, after a couple of years of using it, that shit's rotted out. I definitely think it has to do a lot with the grade of metals and how they're treating them and stuff. You know what I mean? Those C-volts really
Well,
do.
that's what I'm saying. The Seavolt people don't have access to some fucking aircraft or space grade steel. You know what I mean? Like there are
No.
actually alloys of steel that basically cannot rust in the human environment or the earth environment, but there's no way Seavolt has access to that shit. That's expensive steel. No, steel can get extraordinarily expensive. Smash. You don't like. How do I put this? The pocket knife steel. So, for example, a blade like this that could cost a blank of this. A blank of S90V is probably not as expensive now, but like Magna Cut, that could cost $30. Like a blank for this metal that you carve out, it's more than this. It's probably 3 times as much metal as this if you end up carving it out of that blank. But that blank would be like $30.
Yeah.
Imagine that, and that's almost rust proof. Like these super steels, these are called super steels. Magna Cut, S90V, S120V, even now, all these powder steel. They're effectively rust proof, but they will still rust. They're not rust free like someone might assume. Nobody's going to make a Canavault or whatever the fuck out of $200 worth of steel. There's no way.
Doesn't oiling like using mineral oil on the knife help?
And now that mineral oil is going to get into your cannabis. So if you were to mineral oil the steel, I mean, mineral oil, you use that for carbon steel. So, for example, if it's not a stainless steel, if it's, and carbon steel usually can get a finer edge. It's not necessarily sharper, but you can sharpen it to a finer edge, but it has the tendency to rust. So you oil it generally. That's why you do it.
Now, what about surgical stainless steel? Would that rust as well?
I mean, probably at some point,
After a while.
like because what we're talking about is aging weed, right? I mean, we're talking up to 2 years. The conversation today involved up to 2 years, and I mentioned that Stevie did it effectively up to 2 years. So I mean, up to most of us are probably not going to leave the weed in there for that long, but even 6 weeks, 8 weeks, yeah, maybe 6 or 8 weeks is not enough time for the weed to interact with the steel. But I don't know. I'm honestly curious.
I've got like 50 pounds of hemp flour that have been in a contractor's bag for 3 years, and it's still, I can still put a bud on my finger and it'll stick to my finger.
I actually want to make some
Okay.
CBD lotion.
I'll actually see if I can even dig it out before we sign off. Here, it's in here.
I've actually been thinking of hitting Eric up for a couple ounces of his CBD flower.
I can ship you some for free if you want. If you want to play with it, if anyone wants to, it's 15% or something like that. I think is what it tested at. You can make.
Yeah, I don't
So-
mind trying as long as it's not moldy or anything, because I might make it like I want to make
Oh, no,
RSO
no,
with this too.
I'll show you here in a second. But I like to use thermoses too. You can get stainless steel at your thrift store for $1. These are called Thermojug. This is like an old school thermos. It's ceramic on the inside, as are a lot of thermoses.
Mhm.
Thermoses are usually pretty airtight because you don't want to spill your coffee on yourself.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, we sure took this discussion.
Yeah, I
off
like that.
today. Go ahead.
I'm saying I like that. Hey, and I'm I guess entertaining anyway. The idea of using gold coated containers.
That would be the
Imagine
best
some
possible
hyped up
thing. I mean,
product.
if you were a fucking the Sultan of Emirates, I don't know, whatever the fuck, you know,
Well,
like if
I got
you
a
had
question.
if you had oil money, just fucking have some gold containers made. That would be the way to do it. Shit.
What about gold plated?
That would work too, probably. As long as the gold doesn't, if it's plated thick enough that it never wears off, yeah, you know. Like I was just telling my friend that for my whole life, I've dreamed about getting a DuPont lighter that now I realize I'll never get because they're like $1,500-$1,600 now. Well, they're famously plated so thickly that if you drop them in acid or whatever I think brass dissolves in acid. If you drop them in whatever compound dissolves brass, and then dissolve away the guts of the lighter, the plating is still firm enough that you can actually still like open and close the lighter. Anyway, it's like
Oh,
this.
that's cool.
But it probably doesn't have to be that thick. But long story short, like I've definitely gotten things in the past that were technically gold plated, and you can rub it off with harsh words. You know what I mean? So that wouldn't work well. But I mean, if it was actually gold plated, shit, that would probably be ideal.
I was watching this guy. There's a guy that took a whole Tesla Cybertruck and sanded it down, sanded like the clear coat off of it, the whole car, and then he electro gold plated the whole Tesla.
I'm happy when people do that kind of stuff because it's a flashing neon light not to interact with that person ever. I know I would never
it
conversation with that person. So it's very handy. So I don't have to
was
oh, is that person
was
a douche? That's I mean, yes.
well, I think he was doing it for a company that's giving it away, but whatever. It was just an interesting process, like to watch
I'm
actual
sure.
how it's done.
I mean, if I were going to gold plate any car, I think it would be a Cybertruck.
That's great.
Let me see if I can show it before we jump off.
They do stuff like that in Dubai, though. I remember hearing
Mm.
about some of the cars, like something like a gold plated grill on some
They have
Rolls
them in
Royce
they
or
have them in Los
something.
Angeles. I mean, the stupid
And
weather
the,
in Los Angeles is something else to behold. You see, literally every single day, you'll see some guy driving around in a one of a kind supercar, Pagani, something or other, whatever. I swear to shit, it's every single fucking day. A guy cut me off one time in this fucking McLaren. I mean, I shit you not, that kind of stuff happens. So they have gold plated cars there, but most of the time, because just like in LA, just like everywhere else, the people are fronting. So even the rich people are fronting. And so apparently, I've been told most of the super fancy wraps are actually just wraps. Because I mean, to gold plate a car, you literally physically have to take the entire car apart, right? But some people have that kind of money. So
yeah, I think it was the grill and the hubcaps. They had also gold.
Trying to figure out how to shut the
a good
sound off
example
on
of a
these videos.
flashing neon sign. You don't need to know that person. You don't need to say hello to that person. At least I don't. Not my kind of people. I don't know what to tell you.
Hey, here's a big old bag of hemp. And this
Whole bag of
fucking
what?
hemp flower. Well, it's hemp flower. There's a lot of
Have
there's a
we
lot
been
of shit in here
spotlighting
too.
the whole time? Oh, I think we have.
Yeah, I tried to say I couldn't unpin them.
Oh, here we go. Wait, what is D showing us? Are you trying to show us something, D? Showing us hamster bedding or what?
That's hardcore. That's
Oh,
not even-
never mind. What is that hardcore?
Hemp flower.
Oh, okay.
Big old bag of trim. But it's 3 years old and it's just been
Hamster
in this
bedding. You can call
contract
that's a great
bag.
great product. Hamster bedding.
Hmm. There you go. Hamster bedding.
Maybe
Think
for
that's
different
the thing.
animals, different kinds of animals. Rabbits,
But I mean,
chickens.
it smells like fucking.
Leftover hemp. The remains of it,
Well,
yeah.
it
Well,
smells like
aromatic, that's
brickweed
for
from the
sure.
fucking from the 90s. Is what it smells like to me. But yeah, if anyone wants some if they just pay for shipping on it, I'll send you a fucking big old bag of this shit. I've just made dry stuff out of it a bunch of times, and it fucking you're out of weed. It definitely mellows a guy out.
Mellow out, man.
You know,
It
you could
won't let
hype
me.
up the idea of the gold plated container.
It won't let
It
me.
could definitely be a thing.
It won't let me share it without sound, so it's hard to do. I've been really looking because, like, I know someone that takes weed, like actual nugs, and they electroplate it gold, and they wear it as necklaces, and I think that looks dope, especially if like I did it with my own flower, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's a cool necklace. It's a bud." I'm like, "Yeah, it's my weed. I grew my strain."
Now here's the question: would you have any hassle getting over the border wearing it?
I think at that point it's completely gold, so no.
Yeah. Um.
Maybe. I mean, technically, there's probably still particles inside because you take an actual bud and then you electroplate it. You gotta paint it. Supposedly, you gotta paint it in like graphite or something, and then it makes it magnetic and it helps the gold plating stick to it. And I looked up this stuff. I want to try it.
That's pretty crazy.
I really do want to try it. It looks kind of no, I don't want to say simple, but it doesn't look like it's the most.
What a trip.
Are you talking about the little bud sculptures that people wear where it was like
Yeah.
plated bud? I used to know I think there's a few people that do that, but I used to know the guy in Portland that used to do that. I can't think of his Instagram right now. He's got a huge following apparently, but they look really slick. I can't remember how he described it. Oh, fuck me. Yeah, he told me all about how he made it. He used to come to the old cannabis club. So we used to have all kinds of fun events and he used to sell his jewelry there. And it wasn't even expensive, honestly.
No, it's only a little bit of gold. What gets expensive is the actual chain they put it on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want to say they were less than a couple $100. It was really quite reasonable.
yeah, because it's gold, but it's probably maybe a gram or two. You know, it's not.
Yeah, 100%.
It's not like an ounce. It looks like it's a lot of gold because it's
Yeah,
an
right.
actual bud.
Yeah, which makes sense too, because if you had to wear like a fucking ounce of gold on your neck, it would be quite heavy, right? Like all those guys that wear the big old chains, that's a lot of fucking weight on your neck, honestly. It makes you really
Mr. T.
Pardon?
Dude,
Mr. T. Look at Mr. T.
Yeah.
they
Well, you ever
built
seen Mr. T's neck?
Yeah.
they built Buster Rhymes like a 4 or 5 kilo necklace.
Oh my God. What the fuck?
The thing is fucking huge.
4 or 5 kilos? How many?
Yeah,
That's a few
it-
$100,000. What the fuck?
the links are
There's no
like
way.
this
How
big.
much there's literally no way.
Google it.
Busta
Buster
Rhymes,
Rhymes big Cuban link. He probably got a good deal on it too because he did a collab with another creator.
Well, good people. Oh, wow.
Behind the scenes, behind the insane Cuban chain commissioned by Busta Rhymes, you will apparently never accuse this guy of being smart with money. It is a 10,000 diamonds, 54 millimeter Cuban chain.
Holy.
How much weight is on there? He doesn't actually say. But yeah, it looks
It-
like it's gigantic.
It's huge. So
That's
it's got to
comically,
be at least 1.5 kilos or something.
that is just comically large. That's what she said.
Can you show it so everyone? Yeah, look at that thing.
And
His bracelet. Look at the bracelet.
exotic, too.
Is bigger.
That's just absurd.
I think the bracelet itself might be 1 kilo.
I guess whatever makes you happy, but do they ever say how much it weighs?
He
you ever
got
looked up-
this right
Have you ever seen the
before.
weight?
Oh shit! Everyone's talking. Hold on, real quick. Let me say this. He got this right before gold went up. It's almost at $3,000. So he probably unless he got ripped off. He might have made a couple bucks on it.
So 2 kilograms of gold is worth about $173,395. So if he has 4 kilos, he would have basically almost $500,000 just in gold around his neck.
And then there's diamonds.
That's so dumb. I remember one time, speaking of the strain, Gary Payton, I remember Gary Payton when he was still a basketball player, he was up in Seattle and he was walking around and he got mugged and he lost $100,000 in jewelry. And mind you, back then that was before people like wore, Patek Philippe watches all the time, apparently, it seems like. So that was a fuckload of jewelry. And everyone was like, why is Gary Payton walking around random Seattle with that much fucking jewelry? To this day, I don't
You
know.
ever see those images of like when they confiscate the cartels, golden guns collections and shit?
Yeah. That shit's fucking crazy. Real gold AKs and stuff.
Right. Yeah, oh my God. Whatever. Well, but they have cartel money. What else are you gonna do with it? Invest it wisely?
It cost all right. Busta Rhymes spent 400,000 on a Cuban link chain.
As one does.
Reportedly the largest ever made. So I don't know. Would you say 2 kilos is 100 and something thousand?
Yeah,
Plus
with the labor and everything, I'm sure that was
were interesting. I wish it would tell me how much it fucking weighed. I
doubt
watched
it's
the
2
video. I
kilos of
forgot.
gold. If it's got like 10,000 diamonds and all the work that was involved and yada yada yada, I doubt it was 2 full kilos, but it was a fuckload. Yeah, no, and honestly, I think it has zero resale value. So it's one of those things that it's gonna have to get melted down at the end when he's tired of it. But whatever, it's his money. Got this housefly chasing me.
I was just looking up weird shit. There's a guy that owns a T-shirt that's made with 3 kilograms of gold and it's worth $240,000.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I saw
he's
that one.
Indian.
Right? Yeah. Because in India, basically you store your wealth in gold.
Which is smart.
Well, it is until gold falls for whatever. It never
Yeah.
would,
Unless it pops.
Yeah. And it's an inflexible investment, unlike, let's say, for example, stocks and bonds. But at the same time, you can sell gold anywhere. That's one of the reasons why people like it. Apparently, they do the same thing in Thailand.
I like rubies too
It's a
in
fuckload
India.
of gold. What's that?
So-
I like rubies and sapphires as well.
Oh, I bet.
There's also a thing with gemstones, like where it comes from. They have like treated gemstones, non-treated. I love gemstones. I'm like a weird little nerd with that stuff. I've always wanted to go to like a mine and like dig for gemstones and like quartz and stuff.
There's a park, there's a
Places
state park that you can go and mine diamonds and stuff from.
Yeah. I like that stuff. I don't think it like maybe they have healing powers and whatever. I'm not like that kind of funky. I just think they're cool. I think it's cool that the earth made that, especially diamonds and sapphires. I love opals. Opals is one of my favorite things in the world. It's my birthstone too.
I like jasper and chert.
Sapphires
Gemstone, but
or no, emeralds. Colombian emeralds are worth a ton of money, but I
Well,
guess the mine in Colombia was closed down a while ago. So like it, as soon as the mine closed down, it rocketed the price of them because supposedly wherever the gemstones are like formed in the world, that you can tell by just looking at the color and the bubbles and stuff. It's pretty
You'd be
interesting. 'Cause,
surprised
like,
how cheap you can get a lot of gemstones too. Like I used to
so
follow this guy on
yeah,
Facebook
there's
that was from like Argentina or some shit like that, and he would always just post these just crazy looking things for just next to nothing.
so
I mean, they're not worth that.
if you knew the right people, you could buy raw stones and buy just a rock with the stone in it, and then you take it, you cut it down, and you actually see what you got. A lot of the time, they sell raw stones way cheaper than like something that's already made to go into jewelry. You know what I mean?
Or like thunder eggs, which is like a geode.
Those are cool. Geodes are cool, but there's a whole like fake market with them. I don't know. Like,
Or has anyone ever tried making crystals out of bismuth?
mm-hmm. Bismuth's one of my favorite metals. It's so cool how it reacts.
Yeah, you can like take Pepto Bismol basically and fucking break it down and make bismuth crystals out of it.
Um, Bismuth. There's a guy that like he makes crystals, but he plays music, and the vibration of the music forms different crystals every time. So he'll do
That's
like
pretty sick.
rap, then country, then fucking rock and roll, and he'll pull the crystal out, and it will look like the metal ones look crazy, and the jet, like yeah, it's cool.
Has anyone heard about? I might have heard you get someone talking about it. I think Flora maybe was talking about it before, but about how they, and it's been like the paper that came out on it was like 10 years ago or something, but making psilocybin with yeast, like that's going to be a thing pretty soon, where you'll be able to just buy a strand of yeast and grow your own psilocybin with that yeast, like your like brewer's yeast.
Interesting.
I was watching some crazy video on it yesterday.
Interesting. I really want to get into what's it called?
Mycology?
When you take, I've done mushrooms and stuff. When you take like clones and you put them on agar and put them in the fridge, tissue culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really want to try that. That looks cool. I seen someone selling airflow hoods on Facebook Marketplace. There was 2 for $100. It's like that'd be perfect.
And then you just gotta build yourself a little box. Everything.
Yeah, that what's his name?
It just it looks cool, and everyone says that you can like store hundreds of strains in one little fridge.
But also, you know, how fast do you need them to bring them back? You know, you have to remember that too. Like if you want SFVOG or something, it's going to take you a few months to get it back from that little tiny nubbin. So like you are storing it, but how are you really
I
storing it?
wonder. I actually never asked that question. I wish I knew someone. How long does it take to actually get it back to a full plant?
It takes a while.
Huh. I never thought about that.
But
Good
the
thought.
reason that they
Apparently
usually
it
do it
takes
for is to
months to come
save
back.
genetics without the disease or whatever, or to get it clean.
But I mean,
Sterile
even
version.
with I'm curious, anyone in the chat that has any experience, once you have that cleaned nubbin, basically, how quickly can you get a clone out of it? Because I think that still takes a few weeks, honestly, no? Or even a
I
few
want
months.
to say they're saying it was even like months even.
Mm.
God, who was it? I shouldn't say his name because I don't think he's allowed. God dang it.
Yeah, don't out anyone.
Yeah, I know someone too, but I'm not gonna mention his name.
You should try to get. I'll look and see if I can find someone that actually has like a tissue culture lab. Maybe we can talk to him one night.
Well, I
That'd
want
be
to.
cool.
There's a few guys in the community that do it. I'm trying to think of. I can't think of it. Never mind.
That'd be kind of cool. Damn, it's already 5:14.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit, this blueberry fritter is fucking hitting pretty damn good. I finally got a bud just enough dry to fucking smoke some of it.
I got this goofres, goo fries, something like that. It's Joker to apples and bananas. It's really good. Everything I fucking harvested too is in jars now. So I
Nice.
got I think I'm gonna make some traditional Thai sticks. I'm gonna
Nice.
get a little bamboo spear and some silk rope, and I'm gonna take those like long like the Donatello spears.
Why don't
They're
you use a
literally
hemp
just
spear
maybe whatever works.
or a cannabis or weed stock?
What?
They're like long and finger like buds. So I was just gonna put like a couple of them together and wrap them up and make it look like a old school Thai stick. I think it would be kind of cool.
Take pictures if you do, Smash.
Yeah, I will. I gotta
Yeah.
find. I want to actually get silk thread.
That could be kind of.
Which is one of the strongest material. Silk, what is silkworm silk is one of the strongest materials.
Mm-hmm.
I thought hemp was.
Hemp silk
not,
there too.
I don't think it compares anywhere near.
Hemp silk. They're both pretty strong.
I wonder
I
if
think
there's something
silk is
called
strong.
hemp silk. That seems like it should be a thing.
It's all about tensile strength, which is the how much
I think
force it takes. I think.
I think the spider silk was even stronger. Some of it. There's different types of spider silk.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
different.
military was looking into that for a while. Because for the size, the thickness, it's real strong.
Yeah,
For a
Real
long
tensile
time,
strength.
they used hemp ropes on Navy boats.
Well, the word cannabis.
Silk.
Cannabis.
Can you guys hear
Like
me?
all the terps and everything.
Yeah, but Ryan, you keep roboting every time you talk.
It's better now or not?
You guys watching the Dodgers play the Nets?
No, I'm a Red Sox fan.
We gotta go for Dodgers. LA, baby.
I think it's interesting though, like the Athletics had their last game in California.
Huh.
Now they're moving to Vegas.
No, I think they're gonna play in Sacramento for a year or 2 years until their
Oh yeah, they're building a new stadium in Vegas, right?
Yeah, they just blew up the Tropicana last weekend, and
Mhm.
where it's gonna
I
be
seen
there.
That was cool.
They blew actually another hotel is just right by Tropicana also. But yeah, they're gonna stick it right there, and that's just gonna be fucking amazing. You saw the football field. That shit is amazing. The big black football field, the stadium.
Yeah.
Across
They're
the street
also building Hard Rock casino hotel and casino there too, like on that property, which is going to be cool.
Vegas, the Vegas is changing. Like,
yeah, it's going to be more. It's going to be a lot less gambling and more like entertainment based, kind of like Broadway.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's a big deal.
Because like now that they got the Sphere, they're in negotiations. I heard to have the Super Bowl in Vegas every year. They just brought F1 back. Like they're really trying
They're doing that
to
right
make.
now. Right now, they're setting up the city for the F1.
Yeah, they're trying to make it survive because gambling. Like if you look at some of these casinos, they're dying.
It's because the Native American casinos are in just about every state now, right? So you don't have to go to Vegas anymore to gamble. You can gamble right in your own town.
Or go to the next state over.
Yeah.
We got We got a casino about an hour and a half away, like a couple towns over.
I got casinos in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island,
I got about 15 of them.
Connecticut.
How,
I got about
how
15.
many states allow non-Indian casinos though, I wonder?
I don't know, but we got about 15 Indian
Okay.
casinos within a 30-mile radius of me.
I got Mohegan Sun, which is one of the bigger ones. You want to know what sucks though? Like
How many-
I can online sports bet, I can do online fantasy betting, but I can't do online casino. I have to literally go over.
Smash, you just reminded me. They have an online thing now. I saw the other day.
We have
It's
that.
for like betting on politics, on like politicians, like on the percentages. I was like, what the
Mhm.
fuck?
Everyone
It's
bets on it.
Crazy. I'm like,
might-
whoa. I wonder
might
if that's
put a
more
bet in
accurate
there.
than the polls, though. You know, because like
Yeah, but then it's going to be interesting. There's always been betting on the fucking
I
election.
didn't. Yeah, but I didn't know like it was like senators and like because the one I saw like it was like betting.
You can
for,
bet on anything, man,
fucking what's his
nowadays.
Yeah.
the guy Adam Schiff. It was like a percentage of whether or not he'll win, and the guy was showing it to me on his phone, and I was like, "That's crazy."
Wait,
Yeah,
what?
they have some crazy prop betting. Like you can bet on the color of the Gatorade when they dump it on the winning Super Bowl coach. Like UFC fights. You can bet on like most sports. You can bet on how long the national anthem's gonna take.
You can bet on the music, the entrance music of the fighters. It's crazy.
Isn't that a
Yeah.
lot of times the same for like UFC fighters? Don't they like a lot of times use like their anthem, the song that they like or whatever?
Yeah, but they do change it up every once in a while. So like it's interesting. I don't know the betting. All those bets I don't
I'm
fuck with
excited
because
not this week, but next week to finally see Hamzat fight. It's gonna be cool. You know, like it's what we've all been waiting like forever for the
Yeah.
to do again. You know, and then
I gotta say this
see. I don't know. I think Whitaker might bust him up.
the Sphere event sucked. Like they put a lot of money. It looked great, but the
Oh, the
fights,
Spear, yeah.
the fights were garbage. There was no good fight. Even the main card was a shit fight.
Yeah, let me see here. You're talking, let's see, 307, I think. No, that was Piera. That was the one. I see. So 306. Oh yeah, O'Malley. Oh, Sean O'Malley.
O'Malley.
Yeah, he got ragdolled.
Oh, yeah,
He wasn't
fun.
able to. He wasn't able to stop the takedown whenever Marab would take.
But I watched a
My
lot
mom
of.
babysat Brock Lesnar.
No, but Marab would just go in there and he would. I mean, at first it was like it was okay, but I don't know. I just think O'Malley was just like physically too weak to defend that guy.
I watched. I think one of the girls' fights actually got the bonus. She had a crazy knockout in one of the female fights, but all the guy fights were kind of bad. There was one mid card that was okay. I can't
Ortega.
remember that. Yeah, yep. They were, dude. Their legs were fucked up. He kept doing. Oh yeah.
But yeah, if he was gonna do the Spear again, he should have like every fight on the main card should be a headliner type fight. It should be like
he should be pulling every
the way
superstar out of retirement.
The way they hyped it was like, yeah, it was basically the Marab fight, basically just watching him, destroy O'Malley.
Like you need to pull McGregor out. You need to pull every headliner you should have brought out to fight. It shouldn't have just been a Mexican independence fight. You should have brought out everyone you have on your roster.
308 and then on 26 at the end of the month, though, that's going to be decent because you're going to have Taporia and Holloway, right? They've like see who actually is. They've been talking a lot of shit. And then the Whitaker comes at, you know.
I was in wrestling for 11 years.
All right, guys.
10 years.
It's getting late. I gotta get out of here. I hope you guys have a good day. Rest of the day,
It's
be
probably
safe.
dark for you.
Later,
Well-
Smash.
Later.
This is the long noon. Well, it's 2:20, 2:25 over here on the West Coast. But yeah, it's like kind of late for the D.
Uh,
That's what she said. I was
hmm.
like, no, never too late.
Cheers, everybody in chat. Hope everyone's having a great day. I see
Yeah,
you all.
Dab
What's up, Flora?
said it's 5 minutes late, but I'm gonna dab anyway.
Right on. Dab up, everybody. Smoky, smoky. Cheers. Cake in a cup. Everybody in chat. I'm waiting for Fumi to come back, and I got a video of him hugging trees. I have a video of him hugging a tree. to show me.
That's not unusual for an Oregon person to hug a tree.
He likes to smell the trees, apparently. I don't know if you heard that earlier in the show, Flora, but he likes to smell trees.
Yeah, but considering where he lives, that's not uncommon.
True.
Dendrophilia.
Normal, it's like a normal thing up there. Actually, hugging a tree is good. It's a good energy exchange. It's believe it or not.
Yeah, right.
Have you ever read the
everybody-
Celestine Prophecy?
I believe in it. I think it's a good thing.
Has anyone ever read the Celestine Prophecy? You ever heard about that book?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's weird. It's all about like energies and shit switching. I don't know. It's fucking crazy read.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got their different beliefs. Like, I think energy is one of pretty important topic, but very controversial in the interweb. You got to be in the right venue to talk about that stuff. People start thinking you're fucking wacko cuckoo.
What, like the auras and all that shit.
Yeah, but I think all that's real.
There's they have like science about yelling at a plant and shit.
And I used to have a friend like, well, fuck, it's been like 30 years ago. He's been dead for like, so like 2007 or something. But my buddy Will, he had a company called Oracle, and they used to look at that's what he did. He looked at people's auras and would talk to them about it. There was like different interpretations. Now, interpretations that part might be where it like you could debate whether that part's whatever, but the actual energy field, like it's there. Like they can measure that. It's with instruments. So I don't see how that could be weird.
We are just bioelectricity.
I mean, yeah, we are a bioelectric device.
There's a guy named Michael Levin who I've just been obsessed with for like a couple years now. Michael Levin. He does all sorts of like crazy research on like nanobots and bioelectricity and shit. And like what, not consciousness, I forget what he calls it. But like just the fact that cells themselves are like can have like hive minds and shit. I don't know. I can't think of the fucking phrase he uses, but crazy to think about.
The worst thing about a dab almost is that it takes so long to heat a banger up. And then I do have a digital like e-nail one, but you don't get the same hit. So it's weird. So like I like actually doing the whole heater up thing. Heater up.
I just usually use the old blowtorch.
That's what I'm using.
Right on.
It's a blowtorch
Yeah.
with the Benzomatic. Big Benzomatic blue tank.
You'd be surprised at how much butane you get that people get. Like we're used to being high on butane, basically. I was watching something about that too. That was like even just a cigarette smoker for how much butane they actually inhale. Like your body becomes accustomed to it somehow. I'm fucking up the science of that, but yeah, that's just got me stoned. I'm fucking pleasantly surprised.
Down to the bone.
Right on. Rolling up some Cali Gold.
Stone to the bone. Stuck looking at his phone.
Rolled up a fat cone and got in the zone.
Is California a selling point for weed in Canada?
What's up? Florida, you broke up.
Said, is California like a selling point for the dispensaries in California and Canada? Like, oh, this is a California strain, or people like, ooh, ah.
I don't know. Not for
We
me.
used to Cali buds used to be a selling point up here, but like it's been I don't know, probably 10 years or whatever ever since Colorado. Like everything's from Colorado now. Like that'll be the selling point. Someone drove to Colorado to get it. Ooh, it must be dank and full of PGRs, in my opinion.
Oh, dude, the sour diesel was bad. The sour diesel when it first hit the market must have had the most PGRs because I remember it was like little nugs about the size of a marble, and they were about as hard as a fucking marble. And they would, they'd burn for a while, but yeah, they had the. I don't know. I'm wondering if some of that sour flavor came from the PGR. Those
That was
fuckers
another
are
thing I
hard.
was hearing, probably like on First Smoke of the Day or something like that, where they were talking about how a lot of the tastes that we equate to like 90s brickweed and shit is like actually like Eagle 90 or whatever the hell it was, or like like the old school
Eagle
Eagle
20.
20. Yeah,
Yeah.
like a lot of the tastes that we associate with brickweeds or with different strains from back then are actually like the chemicals that they were grown with. It's
I can't believe the people that used to smoke the Mexican brickweed that came in from Mexico when they used to stash it in the gas cans and shit. Holy fuck, that's some crazy shit.
the Cornbread Mafia knew how much brickweed you could fit inside of a live cow. They would like shove bricks inside of cows, throw them back up, put them on a trailer, and ship them across the country.
They were doing the same
That's
thing in weed not that long ago, 20 years ago. Packing it between transmission fluid and all kinds of shit to bring the BC blood down. So same shit. But that Mexican weed was beautiful before, it was beautiful before it got fucking processed.
when I first lived in California back in like 2005 or something like that. Remember, I would go to like I was in heaven because it was like the first time I could go to a club, or like I didn't have my card, but I would go on Weed Maps and look at the menu, and my neighbor's mom would just go and get it from it. We'd just wait in the parking lot, like all the badass strains of weed that were available, and like you could actually pick the strain you wanted. But the weird thing, what tripped me out was, so I had a neighbor that was these Mexican guys, and they had what they called green Mexi, and it was the same shit that I'd smoked back in the day, but it was fucking in bud form. Like I'd never seen. It was a mind fuck smelling it. It's like, wow, that's that same smell, but it was like still buzzed. It wasn't compressed yet. It was just kind of a whole. And it was cheap with that. It was like $30 an ounce or something like that. But it was like, yeah, it was different. It brought me back.
Yeah, this stuff's okay. I prefer the G13 better.
I don't miss picking beaners out of my shit. That's for sure.
Ah,
Or you get them ones where they like the black ones that would break open and just get beaner dust over everything. That was the best.
mhm.
You break open a quarter pound, and all of a sudden, in between one of the sheets, there would be like a pile of beaners that they would just kind of shove in there. That was always fun.
True. Hmm.
$25 an eighth. 120 an ounce.
Oh boy. Cheers, everybody in chat. I see you over there chatting away. Cheers, everyone lurking. We have 26 viewers. Cheers, everybody. Hope everyone's having a great afternoon. Thanks for tuning into the Hygiene Safety meeting as it continues. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I prefer the G13.
I'm going to jump off, guys. I'll see you Saturday probably if you're doing the Saturday show.
All right, Flora. Later.
Later.
Maybe we'll call this the end of the show right here. I'm gonna text Phoebe. Everybody's leaving. I'll message you. Unless he comes back. I really want to show the oh, you know what? Screw it. I'll show you guys right now. And Phoebe can go back and watch this later. And I'm muted. I'm gonna watch. Here's Humidor hugging a tree.
You have to imagine it.
Not from here.
Hey, I get it. It's a pretty tree.
Never seen anything like it.
That'll probably stop when whatever you took wears off.
That was pretty sappy.
Womp womp.
All right, later, everybody.
Later, hardcore. Oh yes. I guess that's the end of the show. I'm gonna text Jimmy and tell him everyone can you come close the show up. I don't have moderator privileges to close up the show. Hey, can you come close the oh shit if I can spell right. Oh show. I'll even laugh nicely. There we go. Well, while we wait for him, thanks for everybody for tuning in. Don't forget, Saturday, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 7 o'clock Pacific on the Fumadoro channel we'll have another takeover edition of the show. Who's in chat? Let's give out some shout outs in chat. Tears to Hardcore, Taking a Cup, Couch Flyer, Vermont Vintage. Okay, who else? John. Oh, where's my arrow? There we go. Stony Creek in the chat. Me. Shout out to me. Wow. Oh, there he is. TC Garage. Hillbilly Herb. Well, everyone in the chat, if I missed you, I'll get you next time. There's Fumador to close up the show.
Good shout out, everybody. I think got everybody there, D. Certainly everybody that I see. Cheers to everybody that hung out with us. It was a super long show, actually. I was going to cut it like over an hour ago, and I guess you guys just kept hanging. It was really Flora that did it, so I guess blame Flora, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, since you are all blaming Flora, why don't you go and look at Flora's seats over at our friend North Star's website. We're on Genetic Supply. Hey, we go full circle. Ladies and gerbils, thanks for hanging. Be kind, be decent, be gentle, don't be fucking pricks, dicks, or lunatics. Join D for his Saturday night takeover this coming Saturday. You guessed it. See, if you tell yourself you're never a winner, well, you just won that guess right there. Actually, it doesn't make any sense. Well, whatever. Let's pretend it makes sense. I did just smoke a nice joint of lemon tree. So we're going to be hearing me say that quite a bit for the near future because I have quite a bit of lemon tree. So good thing that I like it because otherwise that would be really awkward. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen.